Chapter 1065. It could be said that Ji Feng had divulged all his secrets and was truly introducing himself to Lin Yuan. At the same time, he also told Lin Yuan who his enemy was. Lin Yuan didn't expect Ji Feng to actually have such a background or such a huge mess. Upon seeing Lin Yuan frown, Ji Feng said calmly, "Young master, this matter is between me and Myriad Flags Trade." "Young master, this is between me and 10,000 Flags Trade, it has nothing to do with young master. Even if I become young master's servant, I will not bring any trouble to young master because of my matters. I only hope that after I am loyal to young master for 3 years, young master will allow me to seek revenge on Myriad Flags Trade." Upon hearing Ji Feng's words, Wen Yu sighed. Ji Feng said it calmly. However, based on Wen Yu's understanding of Lin Yuan, even if he did not care now, he would not watch Ji Feng throw away his life 3 years later. As one of the Radiance Federation's top 3 factions, Whale Ocean Trade had many Emperor-class experts. Even if Ji Feng became an Emperor-class expert, seeking revenge on Whale Ocean Trade's 10,000 Flags Trade members would be like striking a rock with an egg. When you felt that something was wrong. If it was a normal faction struggle, Myriad Flags Trade's people would not need to cover up the news of killing the Ocean Sky Nurturing members when reporting to the Hidden Moon Pavilion. After all, even if the Moon Empress knew about such internal strife, she would not care. However, Myriad Flags Trade had chosen to cover it up. There must be something fishy about it. It was just that Wen Yu couldn't figure out what the trick was at the moment. After hearing Ji Feng's words, Lin Yuan pondered for a moment and decided to accept Ji Feng. However, Lin Yuan did not continue the topic of revenge. Instead, he changed the topic. And asked, "How did you escape from the hands of Myriad Flags Trade as the Ocean Sky Nurturing's young master? I don't think Myriad Flags Trade deliberately let you go and nurture a tiger." Lin Yuan's question was very sharp, but it was something he had to know. Upon hearing that, Ji Feng recalled the scene 10 years ago. His eyes turned red and his hoarse voice sounded like he was weeping blood. Originally, everything was calm and peaceful. However, on a day when it wasn't supposed to be a gathering, the 10,000 Flags lineage unexpectedly invited us to a gathering. At that time, the Wanqi branch was very enthusiastic, and repeatedly expressed that they hoped that all of us from the Sea Sky branch would participate. In the end, halfway through the banquet, my grandfather, who is also the only peak Emperor stage powerhouse of the Ocean Sky lineage, discovered that the spiritual power in his body had been sealed. His mental power had also been paralyzed, and he was unable to summon any spiritual items. Right at that moment, the Myriad Flags bloodline revealed their true intentions and imprisoned all of us from the Ocean Sky bloodline. Then, the people of Wanqi branch planted a seed with the smell of rotting corpses into the bodies of the people of Haitian branch. I happened to be the last one. I should have died a long time ago like the rest of the Sea Sky bloodline. But due to the special reasons of the 2 contracted phase, I managed to survive 10 years of pain until now. When he heard this, he did not go to comfort Ji Feng. After all, there was no way to comfort him with words. Lin Yuan patted Ji Feng's shoulder and handed him a small tube of silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar. "This is a jar of silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar. Drink it. After drinking it, the impurities in your body will be discharged, and your genetic model will be optimized. Your body will enter the best state. Leave everything after that to me." When Ji Feng saw Lin Yuan holding a small jar of amber-colored nectar, he did not even think about the silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar. However, as the young family head of the Whale Ocean Trading's Ocean Sky branch, Ji Feng naturally knew what the silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar meant. The Radiant Moon Palace's silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar rarely flowed to other factions. Even if the Whale Ocean Trading wanted to request silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar from the Moon Empress, they could only request a dozen drops a year. It could be said that the amount of silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar in front of him was something that the Whale Ocean Trading could only request for 20 years from the Moon Empress under normal circumstances. Upon seeing Lin Yuan take out such a precious item like the silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar, Ji Feng was touched. He also vaguely guessed the relationship between Lin Yuan and the Radiant Moon Palace. Ji Feng had been parasitized by that strange plant life form for 10 years. And during this period, Ji Feng had not come into contact with any news. Therefore, Ji Feng could not guess Lin Yuan's identity no matter how hard he tried. Ji Feng simply did not know that the Moon Empress had accepted a disciple. Ji Feng extended his trembling hand and took the bottle of silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar that carried a bright future from Lin Yuan. It was as though he wanted to drink the pain of his past. Ji Feng's body would discharge a large amount of impurities after drinking the silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar. Lin Yuan looked at Wen Yu and Endless Summer and said, "Why don't the two of you wait in the lounge inside the breeding room? Otherwise, the two of you might not be able to withstand the smell of impurities." As someone who had drunk the silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar, Lin Yuan was very clear about the smell of impurities in his body. The smell was like crushed fish intestines that had been fermented in a bag for 5 years, and then pig liver and soybeans that had also been fermented for 5 years were added in. After smelling it once, one would not dare to think about smelling it a second time. Endless Summer replied, "I still have to use the power to enlighten Ji Feng's world to continue awakening Ji Feng's spirit and soul. I'll accompany you outside." Lin Yuan shook his head in response. Endless Summer, circulate the power of the enlightening world at the entrance of the lounge. Use the power of the enlightening world to awaken Ji Feng's spirit and soul. There was no bathroom in the lounge of the breeding room. He could not let Ji Feng bathe in the bathroom while expelling the strange plant life form in his body. Therefore, enduring the smell of the impurities discharged from Ji Feng's body was his best choice. Although Lin Yuan wasn't a clean freak, he had always been very fond of cleanliness. Even when his body was at its weakest, the Xia region's face store would still be cleaned once a day. However, it was a critical time to save people, so he could only grit his teeth and treat it with extreme care. As time ticked by, Lin Yuan saw that Ji Feng's body was no longer emitting foul-smelling black impurities. He took out the cold snow rosin that he had placed in the spirit lock spatial zone. He added the fire-type heavenly maiden grade elemental pearl powder that the scorching elemental shellfish had just produced into the cold snow rosin. The pure fire-type energy instantly ignited the cold snow rosin. After smelling the scent of the cold snow rosin, Lin Yuan felt his soul becoming lighter and very comfortable. Lin Yuan spoke softly to Endless Summer, who was standing at the entrance of the lounge. "Endless Summer, now is the time." End of this chapter. Chapter 1066. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's instructions, Endless Summer immediately circulated the world of enlightenment's power. The world of enlightenment's pinkish-purple power enveloped Ji Feng, making him feel unprecedentedly lively. Once everything was ready, Lin Yuan placed his hand on Ji Feng's heart. Then he completely opened the shrine in his soul. Under Lin Yuan's guidance, the massive power of faith poured into Ji Feng's body like a tide. Lin Yuan planned to use the power of faith to fully suppress the strange plant life form in Ji Feng's body. He had just heard that the strange plant life form in Ji Feng's body was developed from a strange seed with the smell of rotting corpses. Before Ji Feng had used his body as a container to nurture this seed, it had absorbed the energy of countless people. This meant that the seed had tremendous destructive power to the human body. Lin Yuan wanted to end the battle as quickly as possible to protect Ji Feng's body. Lin Yuan's method was very effective. Through the massive power of faith, Lin Yuan quickly forced the strange plant life form in Ji Feng's body into his left arm. Once the strange plant life form had completely entered Ji Feng's left arm, the dense nail scars connected together. This made Ji Feng's left arm look like an iron arm made of nails. Upon seeing that the power of faith could no longer force the strange plant life form back, Lin Yuan shook his sleeves. This strange plant life form had no intention of leaving Ji Feng's body, so Lin Yuan shook his sleeves. The amber button-shaped source sand landed on the ground and formed a quicksand vortex with a diameter of 2 meters. According to Lin Yuan's instructions, a chain sword made of ferromanganese separated from the quicksand vortex. The chain sword made of ferromanganese ruthlessly slashed at Ji Feng's left arm. Ji Feng's left arm, which was full of nail scars, fell, and Lin Yuan summoned the Jasmine Lily. He allowed the Jasmine Lily to freely heal and use its exclusive skill, Severed Power, to regrow Ji Feng's severed arm. During Lin Yuan's treatment process, Ji Feng felt as though he was enduring the world's harshest torture. The triple pain in his soul, body, and mind was so intense that he had to punch in every half an hour. Ji Feng had thought of committing suicide more than 1,000 times. When the chain sword slashed at his left arm, Ji Feng only felt incomparably liberated. This was because that strange plant life form was finally going to leave his body. Even if he lost his left arm because of this, Ji Feng did not feel the slightest bit reluctant. However, Ji Feng didn't expect that the fey contracted by this youth wearing the majestic Sky City's pattern mask could actually regrow his severed arm. Compared to the joy of regenerating an arm, Ji Feng was even more surprised. As the young family head of the Whale Ocean Trading Sea Sky lineage 10 years ago, Ji Feng could not remember when there was a healing-type fey that could regrow a severed arm. Could it be that the times had changed in the 10 years that he had lived? Ji Feng, who had regained his new life, wanted to thank Lin Yuan, but before he could speak, something unexpected happened. The scar on Ji Feng's left arm that had been chopped off converged at one spot, turning into a dark green seed with the smell of rotting corpses. The black-green seed that had just formed with the smell of rotting corpses shot toward Lin Yuan. Just as Lin Yuan's nose caught a trace of the smell of rotting corpses, he felt a pain on his back. Then Lin Yuan's spirit, soul, and body entered a triple agony. Previously, when Lin Yuan had used the diamond silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar to cleanse his body of impurities, he had endured physical pain. Later, when Lin Yuan had used the suzerain silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar to cleanse his soul of impurities, he had endured intense pain in his soul. These two kinds of pain that had made Lin Yuan wish he was dead was child's play compared to the pain he was experiencing now. Even when Lin Yuan's hands had been sliced by the spatial energy in the evolving water world dimensional rift, only white bones were left. His soul was about to burst from the two sacred source life forms, but the pain was not even 1/3 of the pain he was experiencing now. It could be said that Lin Yuan could finally empathize with Ji Feng. When Lin Yuan wore the Sky City's identity mask, Endless Summer, and when you would habitually call him City Lord and Young Master. Now that something had happened, when you and Endless Summer could not help but call out Lin Yuan's name out of worry. When Endless Summer and when you arrived in front of Lin Yuan, they immediately covered their mouths. This was because Lin Yuan's body was covered with the same nail scars as Ji Feng's. While worrying about Lin Yuan, Endless Summer's gaze toward Ji Feng was already tainted with brutal killing intent. After all, Endless Summer was a Fae, and Fae's feelings were always simple and sincere. The more powerful a Fae was, the more it cherished its feelings. Endless Summer felt that if it had not been for Ji Feng, Lin Yuan would not have encountered this crisis. At the same time, Endless Summer blamed herself. It would have been better if she had insisted on not going to the lounge. If she had been close to Lin Yuan, she would have been able to respond immediately when such a situation occurred. Even if she had been in front of Lin Yuan, it would have been fine. Lin Yuan had used the life-form Silent Fire to save her life and had given up the opportunity to receive glory. When she was suffering from the calamity of creation, he had brought Mystic Moon to save her and allowed her to obtain new resources and transform her bloodline. Finally, after she had become a creation breed, he had given her a precious sacred source life form. It had also helped her solve the problem of planting the Arakawa orchid sprout. Plant Fays were not like animal Fays who did not know who their parents were from a young age. Most plant Fays were alone from the moment they were born, and it would not be an exaggeration to say that they were born from nature. It could be said that Endless Summer's most sincere feelings, apart from her sisterhood with the Mother of Bloodbath, were those with Lin Yuan. Seeing Lin Yuan injured, Endless Summer felt worse than being injured 100 times herself. However, as a creation seed, Endless Summer was helpless and could not do anything about Lin Yuan's current situation. The only thing Endless Summer could do was to use the Enlightenment Law world to keep Lin Yuan's mind and spirit in a state of awakening. In fact, Lin Yuan was not as miserable as Endless Summer, and when you looked, how could Lin Yuan, who possessed the power of faith, wait helplessly for death? Lin Yuan had already used the power of faith in the shrine in his soul to counterattack. At that moment, Lin Yuan's body once again ignited with the amber-colored gauze robe, and he used the power of faith to wash his body indiscriminately. He also suppressed and drove away the strange plant life form that had invaded his body. Just as Lin Yuan forced the strange plant life form that had invaded his body into his left leg and was about to use the chain sword that was separated from the origin sand to cut off his left leg, before Lin Yuan could heave a sigh of relief, another change occurred. End of this chapter. Chapter 1067. Lin Yuan felt as if a force had crossed thousands of miles and poured into the strange plant life form's body, which was being pushed back by his power of faith. This energy was like a command, but it also seemed to have activated the seed's originally chaotic life. The power that the seed suddenly emitted made Lin Yuan feel an unprecedented pressure. Lin Yuan felt a vague sense of familiarity from the new pressure emitted by the strange plant life form on his left leg. Lin Yuan suddenly recalled that this pressure was the same as the one emitted by Mystic Moon's main body. However, the pressure emitted by this strange plant life form was more illusory than the pressure emitted by Mystic Moon's main body. After this pressure appeared, the strange plant life form started to counterattack against the power of faith. Spikes covered Lin Yuan's body again, and some even went past his neck. They started to climb toward Lin Yuan's head. At that moment, the power of faith, which had always been successful against the strange plant life form, also lost its effect on it. Lin Yuan felt the intense pain constantly eroding him. apart from the intense pain, there seemed to be a faintly discernible will that wanted to occupy and control his soul. Under the intense pain, Lin Yuan's will to resist became weaker and weaker. That faintly discernible will also started to counterattack against Lin Yuan's soul. It acted as though it wanted to take Lin Yuan's soul for itself unreasonably. Ji Feng, who had just expelled the strange plant life form from his body, and his arm had just grown halfway with the jasmine lily's vitality energy, suddenly urged his spiritual energy. Immediately after, two plant fays that had obviously gone through mimicry appeared beside Ji Feng. At that moment, Endless Summer's violent emotions, which had been caused by worrying about Lin Yuan, seemed to have found a breakthrough. Endless Summer's endless killing intent and pressure pounced on Ji Feng and the two pinnacle suzerain/myth 2 plant fays that he had summoned. Endless Summer's monarch-class pressure made Ji Feng, who was an emperor-class expert, turn pale, and he knelt on one knee. The two pinnacle suzerain/myth 2 plant fays beside Ji Feng were also completely suppressed by Endless Summer's pressure and could not move at all. Endless Summer was not a person who liked to vent its anger on others. Now that Lin Yuan was helpless in the face of danger, Endless Summer blamed herself more. Lin Yuan clearly did not have the slightest ability to resist in his current state. Ji Feng had only met Endless Summer today. Endless Summer couldn't guarantee that Ji Feng didn't have any other intentions towards Lin Yuan. Although a spirit chi professional's oath with willpower and law rune was trustworthy, Lin Yuan clearly could not control Ji Feng's oath with law rune in his current state. It wasn't like there had never been cases of death warriors assassinating people in the origin world by swearing on willpower and law runes. Life was the most important thing. For those who wished to continue living in this world, the oath made by the will and the rules had absolute binding power. However, people who sought death wholeheartedly already had no soul, and nothing in the world mattered to them. There were naturally no taboos when it came to doing things. Seeing Endless Summer's vigilant gaze, Ji Feng hurriedly waved his hand. I relied on my two fays to survive for 10 years and didn't die at the hands of this strange plant life form like the other clansmen. My two fays can protect your soul and prevent your thoughts from being controlled by the will hidden in that strange plant life form's body. Upon hearing that, Endless Summer carefully examined Ji Feng's two fays. After sensing the special law power that the two fays had comprehended, Endless Summer believed half of Ji Feng's words. Endless Summer withdrew the pressure on Ji Feng and the two fays and flashed to stand in front of Lin Yuan. It looked at Ji Feng as though saying, since you said that your two fays can protect you, then use your means to protect Lin Yuan now. Ji Feng looked at his two fays and recalled the price he had paid in order to survive. His face revealed a bitter expression. However, Ji Feng's gaze immediately became resolute. As the person who had lit the flame of hope for him and given him a new life, Ji Feng was willing to pay a greater price than what he had paid in order to survive. Ji Feng took a deep breath and stood up. He looked at one of the orchid-like fays with sword-like leaves and black and white flowers. Karma Sword Orchid, use Orchid's breath, then use Karma Thread Extraction and Karma Pause. Following Ji Feng's command, the roots of the orchid-like fay suddenly intertwined with each other. Then a massive amount of energy poured into the Karma Sword Orchid's body. At that moment, the Karma Sword Orchid's black and white flowers shot a ray of light at Lin Yuan. Immediately after, this ray of light drew out a thread with the smell of rotting corpses from Lin Yuan's body. He looked at the thread and sensed its aura and energy. He immediately discovered that this thread was related to the seed that had just invaded Lin Yuan's body with the smell of rotting corpses. After pulling out the karma thread between the strange plant life form and Lin Yuan, the Karma Sword Orchid's flowers immediately shot out several black and white rays of light and landed on the thread. It caused the substance flowing on the thread to stagnate. Once the substance flowing on the thread stagnated, the pressure on Lin Yuan's spirit and soul was relieved. Lin Yuan, who had regained control over his spirit and soul, did not have the time to see how Ji Feng's fei had helped him, let alone check on Ji Feng's fei's exclusive skill. Lin Yuan hurriedly mobilized the power of faith again to cleanse the strange plant life form that had invaded his body. However, after this cleansing, Lin Yuan's heart was in his throat. This was because the strange plant life form's body seemed to have opened a restriction and emitted that aura, and the power of faith did not have much effect on it. In other words, the method that had been effective on Ji Feng had lost its effect on Lin Yuan. However, Lin Yuan still did not give up any hope and used the power of faith to resist tenaciously. He firmly defended his final position, which was the spirit and soul hidden in his brain. Ji Feng, who had been observing Lin Yuan's situation, continued to command the petite lotus fei that had not even opened its other bud. Order the water lily to use lotus powder soul cleansing. Upon hearing Ji Feng's command, The water lily's bud that had yet to open in time immediately opened. The golden-green pollen scattered under Lin Yuan's feet and formed a lotus domain. After this lotus domain was formed, it immediately slowly nourished Lin Yuan's soul. After doing all this, Jifeng still did not stop. End of this chapter. Chapter 1068. The spiritual power in Jifeng's body circulated at full speed, and he immediately commanded the Karma Sword Orchid. He used the Karma Sword Orchid's ability, Reverse Karma, to reverse the karma between him and the strange plant life form in his body. However, after using Reverse Karma, Jifeng's body felt as though it had been struck by lightning. The Karma Sword Orchid also paused on the ground, clearly suffering severe injuries. Wah, wah, wah. Jifeng spat out 3 mouthfuls of blood. Jifeng looked at Lin Yuan in shock. When he had been parasitized by the strange plant life form, he had also used the Karma Sword Orchid's ability, Reverse Karma, on himself. At that time he had paid a huge price, but the price was far less than this. Why is the karma power produced by that strange plant life form in my body so powerful? Could it be that the strange plant life form has suddenly become stronger? Without much hesitation, Jifeng decisively continued to activate the Karma Sword Orchid's other ability, Grapefruit Severance. After Jifeng used his skill, Grapefruit Severance, dozens of thick threads emerged from his body. For nearly 10 years, Jifeng, who had been tossing and turning in pain, had not been willing to cut off these dozens of karma threads. When a human came into contact with any life form, there would be corresponding karma between them. The closer the relationship between the two, the stronger the karma power. The dozens of thick karma threads that emerged from Jifeng's body were the last fetters between him and his deceased family. Lin Yuan had given him a way forward and also given him a chance to take revenge for his family. In Jifeng's heart, taking revenge for his deceased family was the greatest reward for these dozens of karma threads. Jifeng pulled out a sword-like orchid leaf from the Karma Sword Orchid and swung it with reluctance and pain to cut off the dozens of karma threads that he had kept for 10 years. The sword fell and the threads were all cut. A tear flowed out of Jifeng's left eye and dripped on the ground. It was as though he was using this tear to bid farewell to his deceased family. The severed karmic threads released a large amount of karmic power. The karmic power that was formed due to the severed fetters all returned to Jifeng's body. Jifeng used Reverse Karma for the second time, which had severely injured him. This time, Jifeng realized that his Reverse Karma still did not succeed, and his body suffered more severe injuries. Jifeng, who had failed twice in a row, murmured in disbelief. Impossible. Why didn't I succeed in reversing the cause and effect twice? When Jifeng sensed his body's condition, he knew that if the jasmine lily had not listened to Lin Yuan's instructions and kept pouring vitality into his body, he would have died. He was afraid that he would have died from the second karmic backlash. However, reversing karma was not Jifeng's last resort to restrain this strange plant life form. Jifeng continued to use the prophecy water lily's prophecy promise skill. When Jifeng used his water lily prediction skill, a pure and holy aura emerged from his body. Suddenly it was as if Jifeng had fused with heaven and earth, becoming a part of heaven and earth, and could communicate with heaven and earth. Jifeng said sternly, I predict that Lin Yuan will use his power to suppress that strange plant life form. After Jifeng completed this prophecy, he immediately felt that his death was imminent. Prophecy Water Lily's prophecy covenant skill allowed him to predict an event. If the prediction was successful, it would not affect him in any way. If the prophecy failed, he would suffer the backlash of the heavenly secret. When he sensed that death was about to befall him, Jifeng knew that Lin Yuan could not use his power to suppress that strange plant life form. Jifeng hurriedly used the prophecy Water Lily's exclusive skill, Strange Prophecy. He had used his exclusive skill, Deceitful Prophecy, to escape his impending death. However, Jifeng could only use Strange Prophecy once in a long time. Jifeng still had one last method, but it was very likely that he would lose his life. The price of his life made Jifeng hesitate. Although Lin Yuan had given him a new life, he had yet to take revenge. However, Jifeng dispelled the hesitation in his heart in the end. If he did not make a move now and try his best, Jifeng would never forgive himself if Lin Yuan died. Jifeng immediately activated Prophecy Water Lily's testimony and was prepared to use his soul as the price to reverse the prophecy. After Jifeng activated testimony, he looked at Lin Yuan with a complicated expression and said loudly, I predict that Lin Yuan will not die. I predict that Lin Yuan will not die. After the prophecy, Jifeng, who was waiting for death to descend and prepared to use his soul to strive to change the heavenly secret, waited for a long time but did not see anything. This made Ji Feng enter a dumbfounded state. Then Ji Feng was ecstatic. For a situation where he did not need to pay the price, it meant that his prophecy had come true. Lin Yuan would not die. As time passed, Lin Yuan constantly used the power of faith to fight the strange plant life form in his body. He discovered that the strange plant life form's body had activated a power that had been hidden before. Even with Ji Feng and Endless Summer's help, Lin Yuan was still at an absolute disadvantage. Just as Lin Yuan's body, spirit and soul were about to reach their limits, he was about to collapse from the intense pain, and his consciousness was about to be seized. Morbius' voice echoed in Lin Yuan's mind. "Partner, I will sleep for a long time this time. I look forward to meeting you again." After Lin Yuan, who was in intense pain, faintly heard Morbius' voice, the reddish-gold copper ring on his hand suddenly emitted a reddish-gold light. This reddish-gold light was like an emperor that ruled over everything. Even the pressure that was very similar to Mystic Moon's was immediately suppressed when it touched this reddish-gold light. In the reddish-gold light, the nail scars on Lin Yuan's body immediately melted like snow under the blazing sun. In the end, all the nail scars formed a fingernail-sized seed on Lin Yuan's neck. The seed was pulled to Lin Yuan's wrist by the Mobius band, which was emitting a reddish-gold radiance, and it broke open his wrist. The seed, which originally had the smell of rotting corpses, now seemed to have a person's intent and will. It was as though someone was using this seed to sense the world. However, all of this was quickly washed away by the reddish-gold light emitted by the Morbius band. If one ignored the smell of rotting corpses emitted by this seed, it was really no different from an ordinary plant seed and no longer had any offensive power. After the seed landed on Lin Yuan's hand, the Morbius band lost its light. Morbius seemed to have fallen asleep and no longer replied, allowing Lin Yuan to communicate with its mind. Chapter 1069. Lin Yuan knew that the Mobius band had saved him once again. It was just like when the two sacred source life forms had entered his body in the evolving water world dimensional rift. It was just that Morbius had fallen into a deep slumber both times he had saved himself. The last time, Morbius had become a fantasy breed before waking up from its slumber. This time, he was afraid that only by raising Morbius' rank would he be able to awaken it quickly. Originally, Lin Yuan had not spent any effort on Morbius' Silver phase that required Spirit Lock. However, he needed to confirm Morbius' Silver Spirit Lock phase as soon as possible. After he forced the strange plant life form out of his body and recovered, Endless Summer and When You hurriedly surrounded him with concern. He worriedly checked on Lin Yuan's condition. Ji Feng, who had nearly died several times because of Lin Yuan, stood awkwardly on the spot and did not know if he should step forward. Ji Feng felt rather guilty that Lin Yuan had ended up in such a situation because of him. He, who had been fighting with that strange plant life form in his body, naturally knew what Ji Feng had done for him. Lin Yuan walked up to Ji Feng and patted his arm, which had grown out thanks to the Jasmine Lily's exclusive skill, Severed Connection. "Ji Feng, thank you so much just now." Ji Feng hurriedly shook his head and said apologetically, "Young master, if it weren't for me, you wouldn't have been infected by that strange plant." Ji Feng recalled the reddish-gold radiance on Lin Yuan's wrist. That reddish-gold light was simply too dazzling and awe-inspiring. Even Ji Feng felt a lingering fear when he recalled it. While talking to Ji Feng, Lin Yuan also looked at the two fays that had been of great help under Ji Feng's command. Fey name: Karma Sword Orchid, Spirit Species. Sword Orchid / Iridaceae Fey Grade, Suzerain 8 out of 10. Fey Type: Light / Spiritual, Fey Quality. Mythii Skills: Frowny Face Orchid Leaf Light Blade. Waves the orchid leaf to release a leaf blade. The leaf blade can absorb light energy to form a blade of light, and when it slashes, it will cause the target to burn and evolve. Berserk Orchid Sword Feather. Every orchid leaf that looks like a sword scatters a large number of blades in all directions. The blades collide and shatter to form even more blades. The blades absorb the light energy in the air and transform it into a rain of blades with powerful cutting and armor-piercing effects. Karma Thread. Pulls out specific karma from the target's body, effectively reducing the target's karma. Cause and Effect Pause. Set an effective period of time and remove the material's cause and effect from the material. After the set effective period is over, the removed cause and effect will automatically return. Cause of Reversal. Through the consumption of spiritual energy and light element energy, it reverses a karmic relationship. The stronger the target is, the weaker the effect of the karmic reversal will be. When the target breaks free from the karmic reversal, it will cause a backlash. Severed Karma. Severs one's own karma line. Every karma line that is severed will cause the target's memories to fade. Severed karma lines can increase the effects of any karma skill. Exclusive skill Frowny Face Orchid's Breath. The root grows a breath tissue that can store energy that is accumulated daily. The accumulated energy will continuously increase as time passes. Orchid Karma Fruit. The karma is the orchid and the fruit is the catkin. When activating the orchid karma fruit, the stronger the karma between the two, the weaker the fruit. During the activation of the orchid karma fruit, one needs to consume one's own karma to maintain it. Karma Labyrinth. Create a labyrinth with your own karma power and hide a piece of karma in the labyrinth. Before the karma hidden in the labyrinth leaves the labyrinth, the karma's influence on the target will be greatly reduced. Fey Name. Pre-order Water Lotus, Fey Species. Manglii/Macrophyllum, Fey Grade. Suzerain, 10/10. Fey Type. Soul, Fey Quality. Mythii Abilities Frowny Face Lotus Leaf Protection. The light emitted by the lotus leaf can resist a certain level of soul attack from the outside world. Lotus Powder Soul Cleansing. Scatter the pollen from the flower bud that doesn't bloom all day to form a lotus domain. The lotus domain can nourish the injured soul and recover the soul's injuries. Lotus Purity. Combine the host's pre-order water lotus's soul with the target. When the target soul is attacked, the pre-order water lotus will automatically plant lotus powder in the target's soul to nourish the target's soul. Prophecy Promise. Make a prophecy of an upcoming event. If the prophecy is successful, the prophet won't be affected at all. If the prophecy fails, the prophet will suffer a backlash from heaven's secrets. Testimonial. Use one's soul power as a bargaining chip to sacrifice a portion of one's soul power to change the prophecy. The greater the deviation between the prophecy and reality, the more soul power needed to be sacrificed. When one's soul power is insufficient, the prophecy will not affect the predetermined reality. Heaven's Secrets Favor. Use one's vitality as the price to pray for blessings on the target. The target will be blessed by heaven's secrets and be in a state of abundant blessings. Exclusive skill Frowny Face Slumber. Pacify the target's soul and put the target's soul in a sleeping state. When the soul in slumber is attacked by the outside world, it can reduce the damage. Strange Words Prophecy. After making a prophecy when one is about to suffer a backlash from heaven's secrets, one can deem the prophecy one has said as strange words and escape the backlash from heaven's secrets. Heaven's Secrets Promise. Automatically predict one piece of bad luck for people related to one within a certain period of time every day. When Lin Yuan used Morbius True Data to see the attributes of these two pinnacle suzerain/myth 2 Fays, his pupils immediately constricted. It could be said that both the Karma Gladiolus and the Pre-order Water Lotus were supreme grade Fays that were 1 in a million. Such Fays were even at the standard of His Holiness's disciples like Shang Zongzi and Gu Lang. From this alone, it could be seen how much effort the Ocean Sky cultivation had invested into Jifeng's cultivation. Fays like the Karma Gladiolus that could manipulate karma and the Pre-order Water Lotus that could prophesy and change reality through prophecy were abnormally rare. In fact, compared to the Karma Gladiolus, Lin Yuan was more concerned about the Pre-order Water Lotus. The Pre-order Water Lotus Lotus Powder Soul Cleansing could heal the target's soul damage. If he accepted Jifeng, it would be equivalent to having an endless supply of cold snow pine incense. No matter how many people in Sky City suffered soul damage, there was no need to worry. Jifeng must have been related to the Pre-order Water Lotus Lotus Purity for 10 years since he had been able to survive under that strange plant lifeform. What surprised and pleased Lin Yuan the most was the exclusive skill Heaven's Secrets Promise that it had obtained when it became a myth breed. End of this chapter. Chapter 1070. The Prophecy Water Lily's exclusive skill Heaven's Secret Appointment allowed Jifeng to predict the future of a person he came into contact with for a period of time. Although it couldn't seek fortune and avoid calamity, this kind of prediction with a warning effect could completely make people more vigilant. And by taking sufficient precautions in advance, it would affect reality. Aside from the mess behind Jifeng, Lin Yuan was very satisfied with accepting Jifeng as a member of Sky City. The significance of Jifeng's existence was no longer as simple as an emperor-level expert. Compared to Jifeng's strength, Jifeng's strategic significance was more important. For so many years, Jifeng had been living in poverty. He would often hide it under the black robe. More importantly, it was to avoid the pursuit of the Whale Ocean Trade's 10,000 banners. After understanding Jifeng and taking him into Sky City, Lin Yuan no longer needed to stay in the royal capital's Creation Master Guild. Lin Yuan took out the treasured artifact made from the treasure cave golden toad stomach pouch and skin and said to Endless Summer, Wen Yu and Ji Feng. Ji Feng, put away your two-face first. Then, Endless Summer, Wen Yu and Ji Feng, the three of you will stay in this prized artifact for a while. It will also be good for you to go to a place where there is no one around and help the Karma Sword Orchid and Water Lily break through to Myth 3. After putting Endless Summer, Wen Yu and Ji Feng into the treasure cave golden cicada's skin and stomach pouch, Lin Yuan extended his hand. He looked at the strange seed in his hand that was no different from an ordinary seed. After checking, Lin Yuan really didn't know what this strange plant seed was used for. However, Lin Yuan knew that this strange plant seed was definitely something incredible. There might even be a big secret hidden within. All abnormalities within the seed had been erased by the golden light released by Morbius. Therefore he could leave this seed by his side without worry. The spirit lock spatial zone was of great importance, so he did not place the seed in it. Instead, he carefully placed the seed in the amber button-shaped diamond face storage box. Lin Yuan then circulated his spiritual power and went through several nodes to teleport to the outskirts of the royal capital where Endless Summer had transcended the creation calamity. On a huge island that was hit by the waves, all kinds of bright and misty lights flashed. Peridot, blue tourmaline, emerald, purple cat's eye, pink crystal jade, sunstone, and various other precious gems were piled up on the island like grains of sand. A beam of light shone on the gemstones of various colors. The edges and corners of the gems of various colors shone wantonly, dyeing the entire island with a layer of exquisite and ever-changing luster. 7 towers of different postures stood tall on this island paved with gemstones of various colors. At this time, in front of each tower stood a man wearing a robe with the same pattern as the tower in front of them. The man who was standing in front of the pagoda, wearing a long robe and directing everyone to chant, was the leader of every pagoda in the pagoda canon. There were 32 chanters kneeling in front of the leader. The chanters kneeling on the ground devoutly sang a melodious song according to the leader's instructions. Apart from the leaders and chanters in front of the 7 towers, there was also a huge tower pit. The tower above the tower pit had disappeared, but there was still a leader and 32 chanters singing devoutly in front of the tower pit. Even without one tower, the Sky Garden, which was originally supported by a bridge from each of the 8 towers with different postures, was still stable. It was not affected by the loss of one tower at all. The Sky Garden was still filled with statues of different postures just like before. Regardless of whether these statues were broken or not, they all became more lively under the baptism of the Golden Fountain. The will, rules, and even the world contained in the statues were continuously baptized by the Golden Fountain. Following the splashing water of the Golden Fountain, the water flowed into the clear pool under the fountain, causing sparkling and translucent splashes to appear. It made the golden pool look like a huge container that contained will, rules, and the world. At this time, there were 8 chairs beside the huge round table in the center of the Sky Garden. They were arranged in pairs and they seemed to sit on equal footing. However, there were only 7 people sitting on the 8 chairs, and 6 of them had clearly just gotten into a conflict. The auras of the 6 people were opposing each other, and they did not give way to each other. Among the 7 people present, there was only one figure, whose whole body was hidden under a rose-red long robe, sitting comfortably and lazily on the chair. It was as if the 6 people arguing in front of her were just irrelevant scenery. Suddenly, a short-haired woman with hollow eyes giggled like a sickly girl and said rudely, "Second page of revival, you are too greedy. It's true that you came up with that plan, but all of us are helping you. It's not time to reap the rewards yet, and you want to touch our common spoils of war. I won't agree to this." As she spoke, the eyes of the short-haired woman with hollow eyes glowed. The glint in the short-haired woman's eyes seemed to contain all the sins in the world. Hearing the short-haired woman's words, a girl with thick glasses who looked like a girl next door stood up from the table. The girl gently curled her hands in front of her chest and chanted as if she was praying. Revival needs to be bathed in blood to be dazzling. Apart from the 8 pages of death, no one else helped me in the early stages. I was the one who set everything up myself. Third page of eternal sin, you are the greedy one. If you continue to watch and do nothing in the future plan, you won't even get 1/10 of what you have now. The girl who was chanting suddenly erupted with a monstrous aura. After this monstrous aura appeared, it directly collided with the aura of the 3rd page of eternal sin. At this time, sitting next to the 2nd page of revival, the figure hidden in a rose-red robe coughed lightly. The expression on the face of the 3rd page of eternal sin, who was competing with the 2nd page of revival, gradually became ferocious, and his delicate facial features also looked a little terrifying. However, in the end, the third page of Eternal Sin didn't say anything. He just glanced at the figure covered in a rose-red robe next to the second page of Revival with fear. Seeing that the third page of Eternal Sin didn't say anything more, the cold man who sat like a snake showed a neurotic smile on his face. He cracked his mouth and said, "In the Sky Garden, the wax figure that I made for less than a month was cleaned by the baptism spring. The new batch of wax figure materials has improved the specifications. How can I finish so many creation breed materials by myself?" Speaking of this, the cold man who sat like a snake changed the topic. "So I ask for 1/20th more of the spoils of war." As soon as the man who sat like a snake finished speaking, he was ridiculed by a middle-aged man who looked very righteous. "The 8 pages of death, you only know how to do some handicrafts. Since when do you have the right to bargain? The materials you used to make the wax figure are all my toys. The creation breed toys have all been given to you. Why are you still wasting time here?" End of this chapter. Chapter 1071. No matter what the righteous-looking uncle said, his words always seemed to be filled with sincerity and courage. At first glance, anyone would think that this seemingly righteous uncle was a good person. Furthermore, he was a heroic figure. Just his looks alone were enough to make people want to give him their all without the slightest bit of wariness. However, this seemingly righteous uncle's words were filled with disregard for life. It was as if the lives of all living creatures were just playthings in his hands. When the 8 pages of death heard the righteous-looking middle-aged man's words, even though he still had a strange expression on his face, his mouth opened wider and wider. It was as if there was a monster hiding in his mouth, and the monster would break out at any time to attack the righteous-looking uncle. Upon seeing 8-page death's gaping mouth, the golden-haired and golden-eyed 7th page war, who had been silent all this while, frowned and said in a cold and dignified voice, "Shut up, 8 pages of death. I can smell the disgusting reptile smell in your mouth." 7th page war's words made the expression on 8th page death's face become even more neurotic, and its mouth opened wider. It was as if the skin on the surface of the body was just a coat for the life in the mouth. The righteous-looking uncle laughed when he heard 7th page war's words. However, before he could finish laughing, the righteous-looking man was targeted by 7th page war. 6 pages of whip, your tower of whip is too slow. The 5 pages of truth, which had been inactive all this while, have already gone to the Agon continent. Even the Tower of Truth has been moved to the Deep Brahman Federation. The righteous-looking uncle was 6th page whip. His expression did not change when he heard 7th page war's words, but he slammed his hand on the table. "What has yours truly speed got to do with you? 7th page war, you wiped out the Dark Continent's Dark Federation. Even if you let your Ash Squad surround the Dark Continent and let the Cancer Phase wreak havoc on the Dark Continent from 36 directions, the people of the Dark Continent still managed to escape. Do you want the entire world to know that our pagoda cannon has begun its operation?" Seeing that the situation was gradually getting out of control, the girl next door 2nd page Fuxing suddenly looked aggrieved. Then 2nd page Revival's tone changed, and the sound it made was like a mournful song. "If we don't get down to business and continue quarreling, my angel of death won't be able to stop himself from coming out to sing." Hearing 2nd page of Renaissance's mournful voice, everyone got used to it and stopped arguing. They were ready to discuss the upcoming business together. Seeing that they were about to get down to business, the figure hidden in the rose-red robe sat up straight. Right at this moment, 2nd page Revival, who was originally standing up and preparing to speak, suddenly revealed a shocked expression on his face. "Crimson gold. My eyes are filled with crimson gold light." 2nd page Fuxing clenched his fists. His eyes turned gray in an instant. He stared at the southeast through the garden in the sky. Sensing 2nd page Revival's abnormality, 6th page Whip asked, "What's wrong? Did you find anything from the seeds of the gardener's konjac?" When the 2nd page of Renaissance's eyes turned gray, apart from the figure in the red robe, there was no one else. Without exception, everyone's gaze was fixed on 2nd page of Revival. 3rd page Eternal Sin, who had short hair and hollow eyes, suddenly discovered that 2nd page Revival's sin value had suddenly increased by a large margin. This made 3-page Eternal Sin's face immediately show an expression of interest. At the same time, the 3 pages of Eternal Sin also thought of the 5 pages of Truth. The sin value of the 5 pages of Truth, who had gone to the Deep Brahman continent that day, was about to disappear. Until now, the 3rd page of Eternal Sin had not figured out why the sin value on the 5th page of Truth would disappear. Although the third page Eternal Sin had some guesses, whenever he thought of the 5 pages of Truth's main body and the contracted sacred source life form, the third page Eternal Sin felt that his guess was unlikely. However, the third page Eternal Sin was certain of one thing. The second page revival must have provoked something incredible. At the same time, the third page Eternal Sin had a strong interest in the thing that could increase the second page revival's sin value by such a large margin. At that moment, the second page revival's voice was no longer melodious or mournful. Instead, it spoke with a lifeless accent. One of the 3 gardener's konjac seeds that I planted in the Radiance Federation is out of my control. After saying that, the second page revival paused slightly and changed his words. A crimson gold thing erased all my imprints on the gardener's konjac, including my aura. The second page revival's words made everyone's faces surge with horror. Wasn't the gardener's konjac the disgusting thing that the second page revival cultivated from that place? How could this thing be controlled by someone? How did the second page revival's aura get erased? At that moment, the figure under the rose-red robe spoke for the first time since the start of the meeting. The voice under the rose-red robe was very pleasant to listen to. The voice was mixed with a magnetic low frequency and a pleasant high frequency. It actually made people unable to distinguish the gender for a moment. The Azure Federation will send a mission to the Radiance Federation. I don't know the purpose of the Azure Federation going to the Radiance Federation this time, but the person leading the team is Lan Sun. With Lan Sun leading the team, the purpose of the Azure Federation's trip is definitely not simple. In the next few months, the Radiance Federation will definitely be in chaos. Since the second page revival's gardener's konjac seed has a problem in the Radiance Federation, a part of our plan must be completed in the Radiance Federation. This time, why don't 2 of you go to the Radiance Federation and complete the plan? Then bring back the gardener's konjac seed. This kind of thing definitely cannot be left outside. The person who controls the gardener's konjac seed can sense other people who are parasitized by the gardener's konjac seed. If a gardener's konjac seed is left outside, it will not be good for the implementation of our plan. As soon as the voice faded, the second page revival, who had returned to her girl-next-door state, obediently pushed up the glasses on her face and chanted, "It's my gardener's konjac that lost a seed. This time let me go to the Radiance Federation." After the second page revival finished speaking for a long time, the other pages did not join in the conversation about going to the Radiance Federation with him. At that moment, the figure hidden in the rose-red robe spoke again. Since the second page revival has taken the initiative to go, the 6th page whip will be accompanied by you. Your sacred source life form, the Black Mass Cup, happens to be compatible with the second page revival's sacred source life form, the Death Messenger Angel. Keep a low profile when you go to the Radiance Federation this time. Don't leave in such a sorry state like the previous time when the 5th page Truth went to the Radiance Federation. After saying that, the figure in the rose-red robe no longer spoke. It was so quiet that it was as if she had never participated in the 8th page council. When the 6th page whip, who had always disliked the second page revival, heard the words of the figure in the rose-red robe, he did not refute it even though he was extremely unwilling. Chapter 1072. The 8-page meeting was still going on, but the wind blowing southeast was getting stronger and stronger. The wind swept up the yellow sand, waves, and withered leaves toward the Radiance continent. A storm was unknowingly gathering on the Radiance continent. Just as all sorts of winds were blowing toward the Radiance Federation, the Radiance Federation's army suddenly appeared. He had teleported to the place where Endless Summer had experienced the creation calamity and become a creation breed through the ethereal jellyfish's ability node. It didn't take long for Lin Yuan, who had revisited this place, to be stunned by the scene in front of him. He wondered if he had come to the wrong place. This place was originally a desolate stone field outside the capital. After Endless Summer experienced the calamity of world creation here, this desolate stone land became unrecognizable from the calamity of world creation. However, in just a few days, this desolate stone land actually had giant trees that were nearly 20 meters tall and green grass that almost reached Lin Yuan's neck. These trees and grass were extremely ordinary plants, and they couldn't even be considered as phase. It was unknown what kind of shocking fortuitous encounter these grass and trees, which couldn't even be considered ordinary phase, had obtained. They had actually transformed into elite phase in just a few days. Lin Yuan looked into the distance. His eyes were filled with lush greenery, and everything in front of him was full of vitality. It was as if they were in the depths of an endless forest. However, the vegetation in the distance was not as lush as the vegetation under his feet. It could be said that the place he had teleported to was the origin of all the vegetation growth. Suddenly, he thought of the rain of flowers that had fallen from endless summer's branches during the creation calamity. It must have been that falling red that had given this place a chance of life. It could be said that this vitality was a calamity for endless summer, but at the same time, it was also an opportunity for the tens of thousands of living beings here. If he were to open the treasure cave golden toad skin and stomach pouch and put endless summer, when Yu and Ji Feng down, the treasure cave golden toad skin and stomach pouch. With endless summer's help, the karma sword orchid and water lily advanced from the peak of myth 2 to myth 3. Even if endless summer could use the power of the rule world to protect the karma gladiolus and the water lily, not letting them suffer any damage. However, it definitely wouldn't be able to protect the tens of thousands of living beings who had just obtained fortuitous encounters. Fortuitous encounters were hard to come by, let alone one obtained from a mortal object. He activated the source sand and let the 4 black wings formed by the day and night spirit silver's feathers seep out of the source sand. Lin Yuan flapped his 4 black wings and flew into the distance. After flying for nearly half an hour, Lin Yuan found another desolate wasteland without any living creatures. After landing on this wasteland, Lin Yuan shook the treasure cave golden toad skin and stomach sack. Endless summer, when Yu and Ji Feng were released. After being released, when Yu and Endless Summer were still worried about Lin Yuan's situation. The two of them went forward to confirm that Lin Yuan was fine before being relieved. At this moment, Ji Feng seemed to have changed into a different person. His face was filled with vitality. His brows were no longer tightly furrowed. It could be said that Ji Feng had already lived the way a person who held hope should live. Although the new Ji Feng was still filled with hatred, he was no longer confused about the future. Ji Feng planned to risk his life to repay Lin Yuan during these 3 years and take revenge 3 years later. If he died, everything would disappear. If he was lucky enough to succeed in his revenge, he would return to Lin Yuan's side and continue to fulfill his duties as a servant. As for the Karma Gladiolus and Water Lily's advancement to Myth 3, Ji Feng was no longer worried. With the Monarch class creation breed Endless Summer around, the Myth 3 world cleansing was just a small matter. Even if the Karma Gladiolus and Water Lily broke through to Myth 3 at the same time and descended 2 world cleanses, Endless Summer could easily deal with them. At that moment, Lin Yuan felt a chaotic and disorderly wind rushing toward him and the others from all directions. The sky was filled with thick clouds, but these clouds were not formed by cumulonimbus clouds. Instead, the strong wind gathered the thin flowing clouds together, causing the thin flowing clouds to stack and form a huge and thick white cloud cluster. This was a typical strong wind phenomenon. Sensing the new weather, Lin Yuan immediately summoned Gray out of the spirit lock spatial zone. After Lin Yuan summoned Gray, Endless Summer's pupils suddenly shrank. Endless Summer took a deep look at Lin Yuan and Gray, which was summoned by Lin Yuan, and then immediately circulated the world of enlightenment's power. It shielded the space within a 1-kilometer radius, preventing anyone from probing this area. Even if there was a life form stronger than Endless Summer and discovered the abnormality here. If it wanted to break through Endless Summer's world of enlightenment's power to investigate, Endless Summer would be able to immediately defend against it. After Lin Yuan summoned Gray, it happily flew around Lin Yuan a few times. Then it plunged into Lin Yuan's arms and flopped non-stop. Although Lin Yuan knew that Gray liked to act coquettishly, he did not expect Gray, whose body had recovered and transformed, to like sticking to him even more than genius. Through his perception, Lin Yuan knew that this little fellow was greedy for the current strong wind phenomenon. However, it insisted on staying in his arms and did not even absorb the strong wind phenomenon. Lin Yuan said helplessly, "Gray, go to the sky and absorb the strong wind phenomenon. Gray, go to the sky and absorb the strong wind phenomenon. This way you will have another ability and your exclusive skill, Pact of the Precious Jade, will be able to condense a new precious jade pattern. At that time, you will have one more jade beast under your control." After witnessing the power of Gray's abilities after absorbing the natural weather, Lin Yuan had long been looking forward to the abilities Gray would obtain after absorbing the new weather. At the same time, he would occasionally guess what the treasure jade beast formed by the new jade pattern would look like. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's command, Gray reluctantly rose into the air from Lin Yuan's embrace and turned into a cloud that covered an area of nearly 2,000 square meters. The strong wind in the strong wind phenomenon was a little too strong. Lin Yuan stood on the ground and felt as though there were people pushing him from all directions. This was just the strength of the strong wind on the ground. The strong wind in the sky formed a much stronger airflow than on the ground. Gray, which was only at bronze, was obviously affected by the strong airflow. Lin Yuan was not surprised about this. Gray's weather cloud transformation might have turned Gray's body into a cloud. However, Gray was still a living being. Even if Gray had an affinity with weather, some violent weather would still have a serious impact on Gray. However, this impact was infinitely reduced due to Gray's affinity with weather. Gray was very proficient in absorbing the clear sky chi image and the cloudy sky chi image. However, when it absorbed the snowy weather image, Lin Yuan could feel Gray shivering from the cold. Chapter 1073. The snowy weather's influence on Gray was the same as the gale weather's influence on Gray now. Gray was contending with the violent airflow in the sky, so that the cloud it had turned into would not be blown away by the gale. At the same time, Gray also started to absorb the gale weather. In fact, Lin Yuan was not worried about Gray's resistance to the weather. As Gray absorbed more and more of the phenomenon, its rank would also increase. When Gray's grade reached a certain level, the intensity of the cloud it had turned into would also increase. This way, when Gray absorbed the weather, it would not be affected by some extreme weather. For example, if it encountered the thunderstorm weather, even if it knew that Gray would obtain a new ability after absorbing the thunderstorm weather, its strength would still increase. However, Lin Yuan still did not dare to let Gray absorb the thunderstorm weather. It was very likely that before Gray could absorb the thunderstorm weather's lightning would severely injure it. Sensing the increasingly messy wind, Lin Yuan knew that the gale weather would not stop for a while. Lin Yuan simply let Gray freely absorb the gale weather in the sky. Then he turned to Ji Feng and said, "Ji Feng, summon your two fays. Ji Feng, summon your two fays. Although the Karma Sword Orchid suffered some injuries to help me, it doesn't matter. Anyway, the Karma Sword Orchid doesn't need to endure the world cleansing. According to the agreement, I will take 10% of each phase world cleansing. The remaining 90% will also help the Karma Sword Orchid recover quickly." Upon hearing that, Ji Feng immediately summoned the Karma Gladiolus and the Command Water Lotus. He also removed the mimicry of the Karma Gladiolus and the Water Lily. After removing their mimicry, the Karma Sword Orchid and the Command Water Lotus grew in the wind. The Karma Sword Orchid turned into a 5-meter-tall giant orchid with dozens of dark green leaves growing all over its body. The two sides of the Karma Sword Orchid's dark green leaves flashed with cold light like sharp swords. The stalk growing from the center of the leaves was filled with black and white orchids that constantly swallowed and spat out light-type energy. The surging light-type energy made Lin Yuan feel that the surrounding environment had become brighter. At the same time, Lin Yuan felt a strong power of karma from the Karma Sword Orchid. This kind of power that could control karma had the smell of laws. Presumably, the laws that this Karma Sword Orchid controlled were the karma laws that could control karma. The water lily was still inconspicuous after removing its camouflage. The lotus bud was still hidden in the lotus leaves. As for the advanced water lily's leaf shape, it was no different from ordinary lotus species phase. If one had to make a detailed comparison, one could at most say that the color of the lotus leaves was a little darker. Among all the myth breed phase Lin Yuan had seen, which one was the most inconspicuous? In that case, it would definitely be the water lily. But looks didn't mean anything. This seemingly inconspicuous myth breed fae, the prophecy water lotus, was actually a fae with powerful abilities that could predict the future. Presumably, the foretelling water lily had grasped the foretelling law. Right at this moment, the Karma Sword Orchid and the water lotus suddenly erupted with powerful spiritual power. Then, his powerful mental power began to materialize. A man with black hair and white eyes appeared in front of the Karma Gladiolus. He looked to be in his 20s or 30s. After ordering the water lily, a young woman in her early 20s appeared in front of him. She had an ordinary appearance but an extremely pure and holy aura. Upon seeing this, Lin Yuan knew that the images of the black-haired, white-eyed man and the ordinary-looking holy woman were the manifestations of the Karma Gladiolus and the Precommand Water Lotus spiritual energy. Although Myth 2 plant species phase could not take human form like animal species phase, they had grasped this spiritual power materialization ability. It was just that this materialized spiritual energy couldn't be too far away from the main body. When he had first met Endless Summer, it had also used this ability. Presumably, after the Karma Gladiolus and the Water Lily of Advance had taken human forms, they were also trying to materialize their appearances with their mental energy. While Lin Yuan was probing the Karma Sword Orchid and the Command Water Lotus, the Karma Sword Orchid suddenly appeared. Lin Yuan saw the black-haired, white-eyed man formed by the Karma Sword Orchid's spiritual energy slowly look at the woman with an ordinary appearance and holy temperament. "Renji, why are you acting so weird today?" A confused expression appeared on the face of the ordinary-looking and holy woman that the water lily had transformed into. Janine, what's wrong? How am I strange? Upon hearing that, the black-haired, white-eyed man revealed a shy expression. You look so good. Upon hearing the Karma Sword Orchid's words, the water lily also revealed a shy expression. The love and affection between the two of them were about to overflow. The words of the Karma Sword Orchid and the water lily made Lin Yuan, endless summer, and when you feel a thick layer of goosebumps. Why did they start to forcefully open someone's mouth and feed them dog food? Moreover, the taste of this dog food was too tacky. Previously, when Lin Yuan had found out about the relationship between Duan He and Purple Demon, he had felt that he had opened a door to a new world. Duan He had let Lin Yuan know that fays could actually be raised as wives. Now Ji Feng had opened another door for Lin Yuan. Raising fays with feelings could also nurture a pair of lovers, and then they could be together and eat dog food every day. At that moment, Lin Yuan saw Ji Feng walk between the water lily and the Karma Gladiolus. He reached out and placed one hand on the shoulder of the black-haired, white-eyed man, while the other hand on the shoulder of the ordinary-looking and holy woman that the water lily had transformed into. The atmosphere between the three of them was very harmonious. Upon seeing this, Lin Yuan revealed a puzzled expression. The two of them were dating, so why was Ji Feng going over to join in the fun? When Ji Feng saw the puzzled expression on Lin Yuan's face, he smiled and explained without any shyness. It's very natural for the three of us to be together. Upon hearing Ji Feng's words, Lin Yuan felt as though his entire body was splitting apart. At the same time, Ji Feng's words had once again opened a new door for Lin Yuan. It turned out that nurturing a pair of fey lovers could not only be a CP but they could also be a CP. Could this be Ji Feng's true happiness? The world of adults was truly too difficult to understand. Ji Feng cuddled with the Karma Sword Orchid and the water lily for a while before speaking. Jianyin, Lotus Awareness, both of you will trigger the world cleansing. Endless Summer will help you withstand the world cleansing's attack. You just have to wait for the world cleansing to end and the world grace to descend. The Karma Gladiolus and water lily shrunk their necks. Clearly, the pressure from Endless Summer's aura had left them with lingering fear. Chapter 1074. However, when they heard Ji Feng say that Endless Summer could help them through the world cleansing, the Karma Sword Orchid and water lily quickly expressed their gratitude to Endless Summer. When Endless Summer heard this, she hurriedly waved her hand. Then she solemnly and sincerely apologized to Ji Feng, ordering the water lily and Karma Sword Orchid in advance for releasing their auras. Ji Feng, the Karma Sword Orchid, and water lily expressed their understanding. In that situation, it would be strange if Endless Summer did not guard against them. After apologizing, Endless Summer said, "You guys just need to trigger the world cleansing together. Leave everything else to me." After speaking, Endless Summer stood in place with its hands behind its back, waiting for the arrival of the Karma Sword Orchid and water lily's world cleansing. The Karma Sword Orchid and water lily quickly released their Pinnacle Suzerain/Myth 2 phase auras. A black and white Karma Law rune and a Prediction Law rune formed by a holy aura rushed into the sky. Sensing the auras emitted by the Karma Sword Orchid and water lily, two large holes appeared in the sky. Sensing the aura emitted by the Karma Sword Orchid and the water lily Law rune, two large holes appeared in the sky. The big holes released thick dark red flames that were like viscous liquid. Thick dark red flames were released from the hole. These flames were like viscous liquid. The world cleansing that plant-type phase had to go through to Myth 3 was usually a world cleansing that focused on fire-type attacks. The world cleansing that plant-type phase had to go through to Myth 3 was generally a world cleansing that focused on fire-type attacks. It could be said that this world cleansing was extremely lethal to plant-type phase. When Endless Summer had gone through the world cleansing, the sky had also descended a world cleansing that focused on fire-type attacks. Suddenly, Lin Yuan realized that Gray was excited when it saw the two big holes in the sky. It was about to drill into the two big holes that the world cleansing had created. Lin Yuan hurriedly stopped Gray with cold sweat. Currently, Gray's rank was only at the bronze rank. If Gray entered the two large holes, it would definitely die. If it drilled into those two big holes, Lin Yuan would probably have to say goodbye to Gray forever. Even if it was a blessed Fae, it still had no chance of survival under the world cleansing of Myth 3. After being stopped by Lin Yuan, Gray left the two big holes that the world cleansing had created, feeling wronged. It was like a good baby in the distance, obediently absorbing the strong wind aura. Through Gray's actions, Lin Yuan knew that as a blessed Fae, Gray could absorb the world cleansing. In other words, the heavenly baptism itself was a kind of phenomenon. This discovery made Lin Yuan look forward to it and excited. On one hand, he was looking forward to Gray's ability after absorbing the world cleansing. On the other hand, he was looking forward to when Gray could grow to the point where it could absorb the world cleansing. Soon, the combined attack of the two world baptisms descended from the sky. In Lin Yuan's opinion, this wave of attacks had the feeling of heavenly fire burning a city. Endless Summer did not move in the face of the incoming attack. Just as the attacks were about to land on the Karma Sword Orchid and Water Lily, Endless Summer waved her hand and shouted, "Flower Tree Bind." Along with Endless Summer's voice, several flexible and thick roots emerged from the ground under Endless Summer's feet. These roots were mixed together, and they were like two raging dragons as they welcomed the two heavenly flames that descended from the Myth 3 world baptism. After the dragon-like roots came into contact with the heavenly fire, the roots suddenly swept towards the heavenly fire furiously. At the same time, densely packed willow branches grew out of the roots, and the willow branches kept sprouting new leaves. Not only were these willow branches and new leaves not burned by the dark red heavenly fire, but they also seemed to be wantonly absorbing the energy of the world baptism's heavenly fire. Finally, the willow branches' new leaves bore pinkish-purple flower buds in the heavenly fire. After the pinkish-purple flower buds grew, the world baptism's heavenly fire attack also started to gradually weaken. The flower buds that covered the sky were like ants that had been starving for countless years, desperately squeezing out the energy of the world baptism's heavenly fire. In an instant, the tree of flower buds bloomed into pinkish-purple hydrangea flowers. After the hydrangea flowers bloomed, the world baptism's heavenly fire attack's energy rapidly weakened. At this time, two fruits also appeared in the dense willow branches. After these two fruits grew, the Karma Sword Orchid and Water Lily's world baptism was completely eliminated. It could be said that Endless Summer's one attack was able to resist the Myth 3 world baptism, which was rather restrained against plant-type phase. This made Lin Yuan even more aware of the huge gap between Creation Breed phase and Myth Breed phase. This was a chasm that could not be easily crossed. Even though the Karma Sword Orchid and Water Lily's world baptism's heavenly fire attack had ended, Endless Summer's flowery tree binding kill had yet to end. The pinkish-purple hydrangea flowers and the lush willow branches that covered the sky were competing to wither, and the withered branches and petals were in a mess. It was as though the sky was filled with pinkish-purple hydrangea flowers and willow branches just to ferment these two new fruits. Endless Summer flew up and plucked the two bright red fruits when the sky of flowery trees turned to dust. Upon seeing this scene, Lin Yuan used Morbius True Data to check Endless Summer's exclusive skill. Lin Yuan remembered that he had checked the Mother of Bloodbath's exclusive skill before, but he had never checked Endless Summer's. Especially after Endless Summer had become a creation breed, Lin Yuan had not used it. Previously, Lin Yuan had always regarded Endless Summer as a support, but now it seemed that Endless Summer's attack power was definitely not weak. Fey name: Endless Divine Dream Summer, Fey species, Brocade/Hydrangea, Fey grade, Monarch 1/10, Fey type, Wood/Psychic, Fey quality, Eye Creation Calamity abilities Frowny Face Summer Shooting Spear, with the flower vines as the shaft and the flowers as the blade, form a shooting spear with the armor-piercing effect to penetrate the target. Flower Ball Shotgun. The flower ball spins and scatters petals. Each petal will cause a cutting effect to the target. At the same time, the petal has a slight blood-sucking effect to replenish the energy consumed by the body. Shooting Spear 3000 shots. Instantly condense 3000 shooting spears that are connected to each other. When one of the spears hits the target, the other spears will automatically return to their positions. Midsummer Cage. Uses the flowers and vines to form a cage world with summer as the origin. Uses the power of midsummer to confine everything in the cage. Mind Stop. Uses the body's mind to affect the target's mind, causing the target's mind to be absent-minded for a moment. Thus, the target's body and soul cannot be controlled immediately. Flowering Tree Bind. The tree roots grow in reverse and bind the target. The roots will pierce through the target's body and grow inside the target's body. At the same time, it will absorb the target's energy and store it in the body, forming a forbidden fruit of summer. Willow Flower Covers the Sky. Releases all the energy and vitality in the body, allowing the energy and vitality to grow freely. The entire world will be filled with willow flowers. The more willow flowers there are, the stronger the increase in strength. At the same time, the willow flowers will frenziedly extract the energy from every target's body. Exclusive skill Frowny Face Blossoming Flowers. During the growth process, as the strength increases, the number of flowers that bloom will multiply. At the same time, it will increase the lethality of abilities that rely on the flowers. Thousand Apertures Heart. The heart will open up 1,000 apertures. Every aperture in the heart will increase the control of the spirit power. Summer's end. Transform the body into summer and fuse the power of summer into a single point. After a single strike, the midsummer will end. Withering everything. The flower vines will coil around and absorb the energy of everything and convert it into its own energy. When the body's energy reaches its limit, the overflowing energy will form an energy veil on the body's surface to resist the damage. When looking at Endless Summer's true data, Lin Yuan felt his scalp go numb. He had previously checked the Slaughter Sky Butterfly's true data, and it could be said that the Slaughter Sky Butterfly had given him quite a surprise. However, from the looks of it, Endless Summer's bloodline metamorphosis was much stronger than the Slaughter Sky Butterfly. Chapter 1075. The Slaughter Sky Butterfly was one of the 3 supreme bloodlines of butterfly phase. Based on true data, Endless Summer's bloodline was slightly stronger than the Slaughter Sky Butterfly's bloodline. What level had Endless Summer's bloodline reached? Moreover, Endless Summer's abilities were too strange. Endless Summer's shooting gun of summer, flower ball shotgun, 3,000 shots and Midsummer's cage. Should these 4 abilities really appear on a support type Fae? Even if these 4 abilities appeared on a power offense type Fae, they would still seem rather violent. Endless Summer's abilities were simply too unorthodox. At the same time, Lin Yuan felt that Endless Summer's Fae should not be called Endless Divine Dream Summer. It should be called Endless Divine Dream Absorb. Among them, Flower Tree Bind, Willow Cover the Sky, and Endless Summer's exclusive skill, Withering Everything, were all abilities that absorbed the energy of other targets to feed back to itself. Even the offensive skill, the Flower Ball Shotgun, had the effect of absorbing the opponent's life force when it attacked and dealt damage to the target. The more Lin Yuan analyzed Endless Summer's abilities, the more he felt that Endless Summer was simply a juicer. When Endless Summer was fighting with others, it could constantly extract the energy of the opponent and the surrounding environment. As long as the target did not have an overwhelming advantage over Endless Summer could use its perverted extraction ability to fight forever. With Endless Summer's contracted sacred source life form Arakawa Orchid Sprout, its endurance became even stronger. Arakawa Orchid Sprout added defense, orchids healed and orchids healed souls. It could be said that Arakawa Orchid Sprout could perfectly provide all-round protection and endurance to Endless Summer from 3 aspects. When Arakawa Orchid Sprout produced more individuals in the swamp world, it would also provide Endless Summer with a huge amount of energy. It would allow Endless Summer, which was at full power, to turn into a perpetual juicer. After checking Endless Summer's true data, Lin Yuan realized that he had been underestimating Endless Summer's strength. Lin Yuan finally faced Endless Summer's power head-on. Just as Lin Yuan was lamenting Endless Summer's power, Endless Summer had already walked in front of him. It smiled and placed 2 red fruits that looked like tomatoes in Lin Yuan's hand. Each of these 2 summer burn fruits contains a Myth 3 fire element world cleansing attack. Lin Yuan, take these 2 summer burn fruits. When you encounter enemies, you can throw them out as hidden weapons. Upon hearing Endless Summer's words, Lin Yuan's eyelids twitched violently, and he hurriedly reached out to take the 2 tomato-sized summer burn fruits. Based on Endless Summer's true data and the Flowery Tree's binding kill, he clearly knew how this summer burn fruit was formed. The 2 summer burning fruits were left behind after Endless Summer's Flowering Tree binding kill absorbed the world cleansing. A summer burn fruit that contained the attack of a Myth 3 world baptism could be said to be a one-time strategic treasure. It was just that the area covered by the mythological 3 mirrors world baptism was simply too great. It was unable to target a single target. Using the summer burn fruit might harm innocent people. Even if it was used in the Divine Wood Federation, which was full of plants, it was likely to cause a large-scale disaster. He solemnly placed the 2 fruits into the amber button-shaped diamond face storage box in case of emergencies. Then he used Morbius' exclusive skill, Pure Land of Bliss, under the feet of the Karma Gladiolus and Water Lily. A large amount of white sand covered the area where the Karma Gladiolus and Water Lily were. Next, it was the moment that Lin Yuan had been looking forward to. He was finally going to obtain a large number of Spirit Chi crystals through the 2 Myth 3 world baptisms. It was said that it was easy to go from frugality to extravagance, but it was difficult to go from extravagance to frugality. That was the truth. Ever since Lin Yuan had used the Pure Land of Bliss to absorb the Cold Snow Pine's world grace from the world baptism, he had obtained a massive amount of Spirit Chi crystals. He could never forget the feeling of holding a massive amount of Spirit Chi crystals and using them at will. Radiance dollars were not omnipotent in the main world, but spirit chi crystals could solve most problems in the main world. Lin Yuan had been able to win the civil and martial duels at the Nix General Assembly because of his special physique. However, in the martial duels he had mainly relied on his sacred source life form, the sacred sword embracing queen. Lin Yuan had been using Blackie's exclusive skill, Spirit Purity Burst, when he had been fighting Zhongzhe. However, this ability could only be executed on the premise that his body was immune to elemental damage after receiving the law feedback from the princess dress. Without elemental immunity, even if Lin Yuan had excellent movement techniques and powerful combat skills, he would still be burned to ashes by Zhongzhe's Sea of Fire. Combat skills and movement techniques, which had been eliminated and forgotten by the times, could only be the icing on the cake in certain situations. Things like combat techniques and movement techniques, which had been eliminated and forgotten by the times, could only be used in certain situations as icing on the cake. During the battle with Zhongzhe, Lin Yuan did not want to summon his phase and expose his identity. On the one hand, Lin Yuan did not want to summon his phase and expose his identity during the battle with Zhongzhe. On the other hand, he really could not summon his phase. Even if it was the strongest Platinum I/Fantasy 3 Jasmine Lily or the Diamond X/Legend Ethereal Jellyfish, they would not even have a chance to resist. Under Zhongzhe's Burning Sky Ho's exclusive skill, Fire Fantasy Town, they would not even have a chance to resist and would be instantly killed. Although Lin Yuan had obtained victory in that battle, he had also discovered his biggest problem. This problem was that his phase grades were seriously out of sync. No matter how talented his phase were, they seemed to be of little value. Therefore, Lin Yuan needed to use the spirit chi crystals to quickly raise his phase grades. Each of Lin Yuan's phase could be said to be extremely luxurious to nurture. Even Class 5 creation masters could not concoct pure spirit chi, so each of Lin Yuan's phase could wantonly drink it. There was also an inexhaustible supply of heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls and excellent high-end resources. Lin Yuan had truly strived to make every step of his phase growth to the best of his phase. With such an influx of resources, as long as the phase grades were raised, they were bound to erupt with unimaginable power. At that moment, two world grace descended from the two large holes on the top of the Karma Gladiolus and Water Lily's heads. Upon seeing the world grace descending, the Karma Gladiolus and Water Lily stood in place. They did not get up to face the sky and absorb the world cleansing that descended after the world grace. They had already been informed by Ji Feng that they needed to provide world grace to Lin Yuan as a reward for helping them through the world cleansing. The Karma Gladiolus and Water Lily did not have the slightest displeasure. Instead, they were very grateful to Lin Yuan and Endless Summer. Chapter 1076. Due to their species and comprehension of laws, the Command Water Lotus and the Karma Sword Orchid had powerful functionality and a certain degree of offensive power. But in terms of defense it was very weak. Therefore, in order to be safe, Ji Feng had suggested that his two phase must not be harmed by the world cleansing. Without Lin Yuan, Ji Feng would not have been able to successfully reach Myth 3. Moreover, Lin Yuan had also dealt with the strange plant life form that had been residing in Ji Feng's body for 10 years, which had put him in danger. To be honest, the Karma Sword Orchid and the Command Water Lotus might be more grateful for Lin Yuan's help than Ji Feng himself. Even if Lin Yuan took all of the world cleansing, the Karma Sword Orchid and the Command Water Lotus would not feel anything wrong. However, they were still reluctant. After all, the world cleansing was very important to Myth Breed phase that had just improved their quality. After all, the world cleansing was very important to a Myth Breed phase that had just improved its quality. The impact of losing 10% was not big, but it would take a long time for them to recover. When the world grace reached the heads of the Command Water Lotus and the Karma Sword Orchid, they even took the initiative to avoid the world grace. Under normal circumstances, according to Lin Yuan's character, Ji Feng would have joined Sky City and become one of them, and he would not have asked to absorb the world grace of Ji Feng's contracted phase. However, the spirit chi crystals were too important and Lin Yuan could not give them up. If Lin Yuan did not need the spirit chi crystals in the beginning, he would not have thought of helping an Emperor-class expert's Fei to survive the world cleansing. Therefore, Lin Yuan did not hesitate to absorb the Karma Sword Orchid and the Command Water Lotus's world grace. The two Myth 3 world grace landed on the Pure Land of Bliss, and the white sand on the Pure Land of Bliss in Lin Yuan's Spirit Lock spatial zone was as bright as day. A massive amount of spirit chi crystals kept seeping out of the Pure Land of Bliss in the Spirit Lock spatial zone one after another. It looked very magnificent. Lin Yuan was not sure how many spirit chi crystals his Spirit Lock spatial zone had produced during the process of absorbing the two world grace. However, the number of new spirit chi crystals was at least double that of the previous time. Sensing the increasing number of spirit chi crystals in the spirit lock spatial zone, Lin Yuan's face immediately revealed a bright smile. After Morbius advanced to a silver/fantasy breed, the effect of its spirit energy condensation had also improved. In terms of effect, the newly condensed spirit chi crystal could be 10 times more effective than the spirit chi crystal condensed by Morbius when it was at bronze/legend. In other words, the spirit chi crystals produced by Morbius were no longer like before, which could only increase a silver fantasy breed phase grade by 1. Now, every spirit chi crystal produced in the spirit lock spatial zone could raise a gold/fantasy breed by 1 grade. With these spirit chi crystals, in addition to his own use, even the spirit chi crystals consumed by the Mother of Bloodbath's metamorphosis into a favored spirit would be guaranteed to a certain extent. At this thought, Lin Yuan's body stiffened slightly. He recalled that when Gray had transformed into a favored spirit, it had wantonly absorbed spirit chi in the spirit lock spatial zone, causing the spirit lock spatial zone to be in a state of spirit chi depletion for about 5 minutes. From this point alone, Lin Yuan felt that his spirit chi crystals might not be enough for the Mother of Bloodbath to transform into a favored spirit. Therefore, Lin Yuan had to continue to work hard to collect spirit chi crystals. It seemed that the exchange information on Star Web would need to continue to exist for a period of time. As the spirit chi crystals in the spirit lock spatial zone continued to increase, the Pure Land of Bliss absorbed more and more world grace. After absorbing more than 9% of the Karma Gladiolus and the Command Water Lotus's world grace and less than 10%, the Pure Land of Bliss had a huge sense of rejection toward the Command Water Lotus and the Karma Gladiolus's world grace. Lin Yuan knew that the Pure Land of Bliss could no longer absorb more world grace after the Karma Gladiolus and the Command Water Lotus had gone through the Myth 3 world cleansing. Lin Yuan simply returned the remaining world grace to the Command Water Lotus and the Karma Gladiolus. After the Command Water Lotus absorbed 90% of the world grace, its spiritual energy materialization of an ordinary-looking woman with a holy temperament became corporeal. The inconspicuous plant body of the Command Water Lotus also rapidly shrunk and turned into a small hairpin. There was a thick layer of dark green lotus leaves on the hairpin. Upon a closer look, one could faintly see a flower bud emitting a holy and mysterious aura hidden in the lotus leaves. The ordinary-looking woman with a holy temperament took the hairpin and did not wear the body weaponization hairpin on her hair as a decoration. Instead, she lifted up all her hair and hid the hairpin in the middle of her hair. Upon seeing this, Lin Yuan raised his eyebrows. What kind of low-profile fae was the Suzerain/Myth 3 Command Water Lotus? Not only did its body look so inconspicuous, but its body weaponization also looked very ordinary. Finally, the body weaponization hairpin was actually hidden in the middle of her hair. Of course, Lin Yuan, who was used to seeing tricks, thought of another possibility. Perhaps the Command Water Lotus was not only low profile, but it was also a sly old fox that was more black-bellied than Endless Summer. At that moment, the Command Water Lotus had successfully reached Myth 3, but the Karma Gladiolus's evolution had just begun. As the Karma Gladiolus had been severely injured, its progress was slower than the Command Water Lotus when it absorbed 90% of the world grace. However, right after the Command Water Lotus, the Karma Gladiolus spiritual energy materialization of the black-haired, white-eyed man also became corporeal. After the black-haired, white-eyed youth became corporeal, the Karma Gladiolus's main body suddenly swayed. The sword-like leaves rustled and set off a sky full of resolute sword shadows. Finally, it turned into a dark green longsword. This dark green longsword looked rather elegant. The dark green blade had orchid leaf patterns on it, and each of the orchid leaf patterns exuded a sharp aura. The original black and white orchid had turned into a long sword tassel. The sword tassel that the black and white lotus had turned into was constantly swallowing the karma power. Upon seeing this, Lin Yuan raised his eyebrows. The Karma Gladiolus's main body turned into a weapon was rather good-looking. After the Karma Gladiolus and the Command Water Lotus reached Myth 3, the happiest person was Ji Feng. Looking at the Command Water Lotus and the Karma Gladiolus that could turn into human form, Ji Feng's smile never stopped. Upon seeing Ji Feng going over to show off his affection to the Command Water Lotus and the Karma Gladiolus, Lin Yuan decisively turned his head and chose to ignore them. It was unknown when the strong wind had stopped, but gray in the sky had started to absorb the sunny weather. Upon seeing this, Lin Yuan called Gray over. Upon hearing Lin Yuan call it, Gray, which was in the clouds, suddenly plunged into Lin Yuan's arms. Gray's sudden plunge was a little too fierce, and Lin Yuan almost fell on his butt. Chapter 1077. Lin Yuan reached out to touch the fourth white jade ornament on Gray's body and then checked the new ability that Gray had obtained after absorbing the strong wind weather phenomenon. Wind weather's roar. Transform the weather in an area covered by clouds into wind weather. At the same time, creatures within the range will be marked with the wind weather mark. When friendly targets use wind-type abilities in the wind weather, their lethality will be increased. When enemies use wind-type abilities in the wind weather, they will suffer from a series of negative effects such as countercurrent and wind pressure. Lin Yuan raised his brows when he saw that Gray had absorbed the strong wind weather phenomenon. Wind weather's roar was not very useful to Lin Yuan because he did not have a contract with a wind-type Fey. However, wind weather's roar's negative effects on enemies such as countercurrent and wind pressure could have a certain degree of control over local movements. The more Gray wind weather phenomenon absorbed, the stronger the wind weather phenomenon's roar's control effect would be. Moreover, the control effect of wind weather phenomenon's roar was a large-scale control effect. When the floating island whale rose into the air, Gray turned into clouds and enveloped it, forming a speed bump around the floating island whale. Any creature that approached the floating island whale would immediately be slowed down and entangled by wind pressure and airflow. Thus, wind weather phenomenon's roar was considered a good ability. Then Lin Yuan asked Gray to use its exclusive skill, Jade Pact. The white jade ornament on Gray's body immediately turned into a horse beast with airflow wrapped around its body. This horse beast made of airflow looked somewhat like Redbud City Lordess Ling Zhao's diamond/fantasy blue jade Pegasus. However, Gray's exclusive skill, Jade Pact, was a white jade-patterned horse beast without wings. After this horse beast appeared, it immediately released several airflows that were like shackles. These airflows that were like shackles could be very good at grabbing and squeezing objects, which meant that they had both attack and control abilities. Lin Yuan used his hand to touch Gray's indistinct but tangible feathers and said with admiration, "Gray is really getting stronger." After receiving Lin Yuan's praise, the cloud in front of Gray suddenly turned into a huge heart shape. The heart-shaped cloud enveloped Lin Yuan as if Gray was giving him a heart. Seeing that Ji Feng, the Karma Sword Orchid, and the Water Lily were done showing off their affection, Lin Yuan stored Gray in the Spirit Lock Spatial Zone. Seeing that Ji Feng, the Karma Sword Orchid, and the Water Lily were done showing off their affection, Lin Yuan stored Gray in the Spirit Lock Spatial Zone. At that moment, Endless Summer walked to Lin Yuan's side and said softly, "Lin Yuan, try not to let your favorite spirit casually absorb the weather outside." Upon seeing Endless Summer's words, Lin Yuan frowned slightly. He did not understand what Endless Summer meant. As a heaven and earth spirit creature, Gray needed to absorb natural energy to increase its strength. If it didn't come out to absorb the chi, then Gray's strength would be stuck at this stage. However, Lin Yuan knew that Endless Summer would never speak without thinking or say something like that for a reason. Just as Lin Yuan was about to ask Endless Summer, it explained to him with a serious expression. It's true that all blessed spirits absorb nature's energy to increase their strength, but different blessed spirits' absorption of nature's energy will overlap. Even if they are very far away, the depletion of the unique nature energy will attract the attention of other heavenly chosen. At the same time, some of the more powerful heaven-blessed spirits are able to detect the existence of other heaven-blessed spirits through the unnatural changes in natural energy. Lin Yuan, if you let Gray absorb the chi at will, it is very likely that the other blessed spirits have already noticed it. Be it spirit chi professionals or fays that reach the Emperor class, they will also be able to sense the changes in heaven and earth's natural energy. If Gray happens to be noticed by other Emperor class experts when it absorbs the chi, they will be able to discover Gray's identity as a blessed spirit. Upon hearing Endless Summer's words, Lin Yuan immediately knew that he had been too careless. He did not expect that Gray's absorption of the chi would attract the attention of other blessed spirits and Emperor class experts. It seemed that he could not let Gray freely absorb the chi outside in the future. Otherwise, it might cause a disaster due to Gray's identity as a blessed spirit. At that moment, Ji Feng had already stored the Karma Gladiolus and Water Lily back into his spiritual spatial zone. The Karma Gladiolus and Water Lily had just reached Myth 3, so they still needed to quietly familiarize themselves with their strength and the body weaponization weapons in the spiritual spatial zone. At that moment, Ji Feng, who no longer had any worries other than revenge, should have been happy. However, Ji Feng was at a loss. For so many years, Ji Feng's goal in life was to survive. He constantly endured the pain that came from the three levels of the mind, soul, and body. Time passed very quickly amidst the constant suffering. In the pain that could come at any time, Ji Feng did not have more time to think about other things. But now that everything was better, Ji Feng realized that he no longer had a home. In order to help Lin Yuan, Ji Feng had even severed all the karma between himself and his family. Although Ji Feng, who had severed the karma, could not remember the appearance of his family due to the disappearance of the karma power, he could still vaguely remember the kinship that had fused into his soul. Just as Ji Feng was feeling sentimental, Lin Yuan walked over and patted on Ji Feng's shoulder. "Do you have any plans later? If not, then come home with us." Upon hearing the first half of Lin Yuan's words, Ji Feng's throat became dry because he did not have any plans. However, when he heard the second half of Lin Yuan's words, he felt that the word, home, burned his heart. This word dispersed the confusion that had just risen in Ji Feng's heart. Lin Yuan's words gave Ji Feng a warm shelter. A place where he could live again. Ji Feng looked at Lin Yuan with a burning gaze. "Young master, I don't have any plans. I'll just go home with you." After settling everything that needed to be handled, Lin Yuan, Endless Summer, Wen Yu, and Ji Feng naturally could not keep staying in the royal capital's suburbs. Endless Summer, Ji Feng, and Wen Yu once again returned to the treasure artifact made of the treasure cave golden toad skin and stomach sac. Lin Yuan used the ethereal jellyfish's ability node to teleport back to the mansion. It was almost dinner time and Wuxia had prepared a table full of good dishes. Lin Yuan introduced Ji Feng to everyone in the mansion. Lin Yuan had originally wanted to welcome Ji Feng at night, but Endless Summer had to be in the Spirit Heron Chamber of Commerce just in case. Therefore, Endless Summer could not eat with everyone in the mansion at night. Listen, Zhou Luo had also been busy recruiting the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's manpower. In order to take over the resources of the veteran faction, the Zheng family in Indigo Azure City would not be flustered due to a lack of manpower. Chapter 1078. Due to various reasons, not everyone in the mansion dined together at night. Thus, Ji Feng could not recognize everyone in the mansion. Ji Feng had already planned to integrate into the mansion, and he would get to know all the people living in the mansion sooner or later. Just as the meal was about to start, Duan He returned to the mansion from the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce. As soon as he entered, he smelled the aroma of delicious food. During his time in the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce, Duan He thought about Lu Jie's food every day. Usually, Listen, Zhou Luo or Lu Jie and Hu Quan would bring food for Duan He when they went to the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce. But every time, Duan He felt that he couldn't eat to his heart's content without eating with the others in the manor. Unknowingly, Duan He began to develop a sense of dependence on the return from faraway mansion. In fact, Duan He's main purpose of returning this time was to bid farewell to Lin Yuan and prepare to take Sky City's white-clothed followers to train by using the active period of the dimensional rift. At the same time, he could also improve his combat skills with Purple Demon. Duan He came to Lin Yuan's side and said, "Young master, I'm ready. Young master, I'm ready on my side. Tomorrow morning, I plan to take Lu Jie's new white-clothed followers to the extreme north for 3 months of hard training. Do your best to raise the strength of those white-clothed followers." While speaking, Duan He thought of the bronze/epic phase that Lin Yuan had created for those white-clothed followers according to the willpower rune. These bronze/epic phase created according to the willpower rune allowed the king-class experts, who had no talent but only resources, to undergo a transformation. During the 3 months in the extreme north, Duan He was prepared to be strict. He would use the test of life and death to let these king-class experts grow quickly. Otherwise, Duan He felt that these white-clothed followers were really unworthy of Lin Yuan's high-end resources. Upon hearing Duan He's words, Lin Yuan smiled and nodded. "Senior Duan He, thank you for your hard work. I'll have to trouble you with those white-clothed followers." After saying that, Lin Yuan took out a brocade pouch. The brocade pouch contained 13 heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls that had just been produced by the elemental shellfish in the Spirit Lock spatial zone. These were the resources that Lin Yuan intended to leave for Duan He for 3 months for him to use freely. In fact, Lin Yuan had originally planned to let Duan He bring Gray along and help it find different auras to absorb during the training. However, after hearing what Endless Summer had said to him, he had given up on this plan. If a spirit of heavenly protector or an emperor-level powerhouse discovered Gray Ash, not only would Duan He not be able to protect Gray Ash, but Gray Ash would also die. Instead, he would be in danger because of Gray. Duan He took the brocade pouch and looked at the 100 heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls in it in a daze. "Senior Duan He, I should be able to harvest a huge batch of high-grade fey flesh that can help Senior Purple Demon increase his strength in a few days. I'll get Ostrich Logistics to send those high-grade phase flesh over. When Lin Yuan had told Zheng Kaiyuan to visit the return from faraway mansion in a few days at the Spirit Food Pavilion, there had been a deeper meaning. When Zheng Kaiyuan came to the return from faraway manor, the Zheng family had already gone through the Blood Oath extreme battle and should no longer exist. At that time, Zheng Kaiyuan could only live under the roof of the Miao family like a stray dog. Zheng Kaiyuan, who had lost the backing of the old Zheng family, was like a rootless duckweed. No matter where he went, he would not have the confidence he had before. The more arrogant Zheng Kaiyuan had been in the Miao family, the more people he had offended, the more people would hate him and find trouble behind his back. Therefore, what Zheng Kaiyuan could do was firmly hold on to this line with Lin Yuan and help him get better resources from the Zheng family in order to please him. This was what Lin Yuan wanted. Lin Yuan planned to trade a large number of myth breed phase for Duan He in addition to the law origin crystals so that the purple demon's strength could rapidly increase. Anyway, with a large number of law origin crystals, Lin Yuan would only have more and more law crystals that contain pure power of law. He could also afford to feed these myth 3 phase in the return from faraway manor. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, Duan He was overjoyed. The purple demon's strength could finally increase. Moreover, the suzerain/myth breed phase that Lin Yuan had given him could not possibly all be dark type, right? When the other heads of the purple demon became the main personality, Duan He felt that he could be liberated. At the same time, it would be like changing a wife. Thinking of the sickly personality in the purple demon's dark type head, Duan He lived in fear every day. Perhaps one night, the person next to him would grab his neck and ask, "You're clearly with me. Why did you sneak into the Spirit Food Pavilion with others to eat the saliva snake when you're clearly with me?" As the young family head of the sea and sky lineage, Ji Feng's social skills were naturally maxed out. Soon, Ji Feng became familiar with the people he saw in the manor. After eating, when you took Ji Feng to clean up a guest room and transformed it into the room that Ji Feng usually lived in. Since Hu Quan had been in seclusion recently, when you found 3 Class 3 spirit craftsmen in the manor to modify the room according to Ji Feng's requirements. Ji Feng, who had his own room, could be considered to be officially living in the manor. Then, when you also considerately connected the 2 guest rooms next to Ji Feng's room from the inside. The 2 rooms were separated from each other, but they were both connected to Ji Feng's room. These 2 rooms were prepared by Wen Yu for the Karma Gladiolus and the Water Lily. The Karma Gladiolus and the Water Lily had reached Myth 3. After familiarizing themselves with their strength in Ji Feng's spiritual spatial zone, they would have to live outside. Wen Yu naturally did not know how the 3 of them lived. However, this obviously gave Ji Feng enough privacy and space. As for how to build those 2 rooms, Wen Yu let the 3 Class 3 spirit craftsmen stand by first. After the Karma Gladiolus and the Water Lily came out, they would use their ideas to modify the room. After dealing with these matters, Lin Yuan looked at the increasing number of people in the manor. A faint smile appeared on Wen Yu's face. After dinner, Lin Yuan felt that he could not open his eyes. His upper and lower eyelids seemed to be sticky and wanted to grow together. He had sat in the snow for a day last night and had been busy for another day today. He was still fighting with the strange plant life form in his body under the triple pain of his mind, body, and soul. It could be said that Lin Yuan was really exhausted. Tomorrow morning he still had to go to the Radiant Moon Palace to meet his master, the Moon Empress, and then have a meal with Zhongzhe, Gulang, Long Tao, and the others. Therefore, even though it was just past 8 o'clock in the evening and there were still many things to do, Lin Yuan still planned to go to sleep. Lin Yuan, whose eyelids were fighting, did not even have the energy to check how many spirit chi crystals there were in the spirit lock spatial zone. Just as he was about to fall asleep, his cell phone suddenly rang. Chapter 1079. This time Lin Yuan's cell phone did not ring. It was a group video message. He picked up his cell phone in a daze and accepted the group video message. He saw that Zhongzhe, Gulang, Gaofeng, Long Tao, Sun Ningxiang, and Li Xin were all in high spirits. Lu Jia had missed the group video call last time because he had been using the Insect Queen to control the insect carcinoma Fei. However, he was in the mansion this time. He had put on the Spirit Guard's standard mask before the group video call. Upon seeing this, Lin Yuan perked up and sat cross-legged on the bed. Lin Yuan, who was sitting cross-legged on the bed, shook his head in a daze and forced himself to wake up. Upon seeing Lin Yuan's appearance in the video, Zhongzhe, Gulang, Long Tao, Li Xian, and the others were shocked. Even Lu Jia was very surprised. After living with Lin Yuan for so long, it was his first time seeing him in such a daze and a little lazy. Lin Yuan now looked like a sunshine boy who was a little sleepy, which made people feel close to him at first glance. In the past, Lin Yuan's appearance in front of everyone was too perfect. After seeing him like this, everyone felt that their relationship with him had invisibly become much closer. Lu Jie had seen that Lin Yuan was listless at the dining table. In Lu Jie's memory, Lin Yuan rarely appeared to be so exhausted. Lu Jie immediately thought that something was wrong with Lin Yuan's body. Just as Lu Jie was about to ask about Lin Yuan's condition, he heard a voice at the same time as him. Lu Jie and Zhong Zhe asked the same question in unison. Lin Yuan, are you feeling unwell? Lu Jie and Zhong Zhe looked at each other for a moment before looking away. Lin Yuan had already suppressed his sleepiness and used his hand to rub his eyes. I'm fine. I just didn't sleep last night and feel a little sleepy after eating. Gu Lang had been looking at Zhong Zhe with a probing gaze since Zhong Zhe had asked about Lin Yuan's condition. During the group video chat, Gu Lang had felt that something was wrong with Zhong Zhe. He had been helping Lin Yuan without saying anything. He had even wanted to use his creation master resources to reduce Lin Yuan's pressure. This was not at all in line with Zhong Zhe's usual character. Zhong Zhe, who had always been indifferent to other people's matters, took the initiative to ask about Lin Yuan's situation. This meant that Zhong Zhe was worried about Lin Yuan's body. Zhong Zhe taking the initiative to care about someone was really too abnormal. Zhong Zhe had always disdained to disguise his attitude towards anyone. Even Tianfeng's disciple Zhong Zhe wouldn't hesitate to throw his face away when he needed to, not leaving any face behind. However, what puzzled Gu Lang was that Zhong Zhe and Lin Yuan had only met a few times. When did the two of them form such a deep friendship? As soon as Lin Yuan finished talking about his situation, Lu Jie spoke first. If there's something, the 8 of us will have a brief discussion first. We'll talk about it in detail during the day. Lin Yuan, I will heat up a cup of light milk tea cow's milk for you in a while. Drinking it can calm your nerves. Lin Yuan nodded in response. Some time ago, Lu Jie participated in a private auction and bought 2 light milk tea cows. Light milk tea cows usually didn't eat grass, only tea. The milk they produced was incomparably mellow, and at the same time, it also had a faint tea fragrance and sweetness. After it was boiled, some equinox fruits with a sleeping effect would be added. With the sweet milk with the tea fragrance and the soft texture of the equinox fruits, one would definitely have a good night's sleep. Lu Jie and Lin Yuan's conversation immediately let everyone capture a piece of information. Lin Yuan and Lu Jie lived together. It could be said that among the 8 people who were currently on the phone, Lu Jie was the most mysterious to Gao Feng, Gu Lang, Zhong Zhe, Sun Ningxiang, Long Tao, Li Xian, and the others. Lu Jie had been wearing the Spirit Guard's standard mask, so no one knew what he looked like behind the mask. Looking at the Spirit Guard's standard mask on Lu Jie's face, Lin Yuan felt like laughing. In fact, it was reasonable to say that after participating in the Nix assembly, Lu Jie could completely expose his identity, but he didn't. It was unknown if Lu Jie was addicted to wearing the mask. Lu Jie also asked his master, Night Leaning Moon, to create a mask made of 1,000 pieces of machinery for him. This mask made of 1,000 pieces of machinery looked no different from the Spirit Guard's standard mask. However, it could freely change and combine with the movements of Lu Jie's face. Lu Jie could even wear this mask to eat and drink. When Lu Jie had returned to the mansion with this mask, Hu Quan had been shocked at first glance. Finally, after studying Lu Jie's mask for a day, Hu Quan was somewhat disheartened to find that he could not imitate the mask's machinery at all. This made Hu Quan feel frustrated for the first time since becoming a Class 5 spirit craftsman. This also made Hu Chuanmong full of energy, wanting to improve his spirit craftsman strength again. It was unknown if it was because of this blow, but Hu Quan had already entered seclusion with Lin Yuan's heavenly maiden grade elemental pearls. Lin Yuan was looking forward to what Hu Quan could weave those heavenly maiden grade elemental pearls into after he came out of seclusion. Gao Feng looked at the listless Lin Yuan and instructed, "Brother, don't stay up late if you have nothing to do. Brother, don't stay up late if you have nothing to do. It's not good for your health. I'll bring you some deep-sea fish brains for tomorrow's dinner. These deep-sea fish brains are extracted from the brains of deep-sea platinum and above fish phase. It has an immediate effect on fatigue recovery." Upon hearing Gao Feng's instructions, Lin Yuan could not help but roll his eyes. When Lin Yuan had spoken to Gao Feng on the phone previously, he had heard from Gao Feng that he would secretly pretend to be asleep whenever his family urged him to sleep. In the latter half of the night, he would secretly use the Star Web card to log into the Star Web. How could a person with such a routine tell him to sleep early? Speaking of which, they would go to Zhong Zhe's place for a meal at noon tomorrow. Tonight they should be talking about the meal as well. The people in this small group had jointly established a force to develop the Abyss world. It could be said that they were all on the same side. Long Tao knew his identity as black. Therefore he did not need to be apprehensive when speaking. Lin Yuan asked Gao Feng. Gao Feng, you said you were looking for a guild club that could participate in the S tournament. Have you found it yet? Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, Gao pouted and said with some anger. Before I became Teacher Cicada's disciple, I applied to a few B-rank clubs, but they all rejected me. I heard that White Devil left the Extreme Guild Club, so I wanted to give it a try. However, even a second-rate guild club like the Extreme Guild Club is picky about me. Chapter 1081. As Miao Ji spoke, the more she looked at Zheng Kaiyuan's broken teeth, the more her heart ached. At the same time, the anger in her heart began to surge. The anger finally piled up and turned into a thick killing intent. This killing intent was targeted at Sky City's City Lord, the youth who knocked out Zheng Kaiyuan's teeth. In Miao Ji's opinion, her son Zheng Kaiyuan was a dragon among men. When he was 11 or 12 years old, he had displayed powerful creation master talent. Without even needing her to say anything, Zheng Kaiyuan's creation master talent had caught her elder sister's eye and been accepted as a disciple. At the end of the day, Zheng Kaiyuan had not had any opportunities because the Zheng family was just a veteran faction. Furthermore, it was not a top faction. Not long ago, her son had the opportunity to participate in a top event like the Nix Assembly and immediately seized the opportunity. Miao Zhua and Miao Qi had gotten into trouble and been kicked out of the Nix Assembly. Instead, her son Zheng Kaiyuan had stayed in the Nix Assembly and brought back the news that the Radiance Federation's Class 6 Abyss Rift was about to open. Her son Zheng Kaiyuan had even become friends with the Moon Empress disciple at the Nix Assembly. He had even gotten the Moon Empress disciple's contact information. One had to know that a mobile phone number was an extremely private thing for people with status. People with status would not leave their contact information for ordinary acquaintances. After Miao Ji married into the Zheng family, her father, Zheng Ji, did not allow her to return to the Miao family even during the new year. When she called for New Year's greetings, Zheng Ji would not pick up the phone. This made Miao Ji feel a trace of hostility toward the Miao family. For so many years, Miao Ji had been longing to return to the Miao family, but there was no way. Now that Miao Ji had returned to the Miao family, she was personally welcomed by her father, Miao Jinshan. As his daughter, Miao Ji knew how snobbish and indifferent Miao Jinshan was. Therefore, Miao Ji's mentality changed when her father personally welcomed her back to the Miao family. She felt that the Miao family now had to rely on her son, Zheng Kaiyuan. Before Miao Ji got married, she was rather polite to some of the old servants of the Miao family. Now that she had returned to the Miao family, she put on the airs of a master. Miao Ji's words made Zheng Kaiyuan's eyes light up. If he could really make Elder Han, who had always been by his grandfather's side, represent the Zheng family to fight the Sky City. Given old Han's fourth tribulation creation strength at Monarch Class 5, there was nothing for him to worry about. With old Han's strength, he could even easily annihilate some of the lower-ranked peak forces. Not to mention a sky castle that had just been established not long ago. However, Miao Ji's words caused the old man who was pacing in the room to stiffen. Then the old man's expression suddenly darkened, revealing an extremely displeased expression. Zheng Kaiyuan, who had turned to look at Miao Ji in her joyful expression, couldn't help but have a complicated look in his eyes. Zheng Ji was a peak-level Emperor stage powerhouse, as well as the Zheng family's old patriarch. His heart and soul were devoted to the Zheng family's development. Zheng Ji had spent a lot of effort fighting with the other two veteran forces in Indigo Azure City all year round. Zheng Ji was developing the Zheng family with great effort mainly for the continuation of the Zheng family's foundation. At the same time, it was also for his own reputation. Zheng Ji had always taken a steady path to develop the Zheng family. He was afraid that some problems would cause the other two veteran forces in Indigo Azure City to launch a counterattack against the Zheng family. Zheng Ji had agreed to Zheng Kaiyuan's suggestion to have a blood oath duel with Sky Castle this time because he had already regarded Zheng Kaiyuan as the next family patriarch after so many years. Zheng Ji was now in his 70s and 80s, but he was still the Zheng family patriarch. It was because his son was useless. However, his son was good at seducing women. He had even seduced Miao Ji from the top faction Beast Creation Garden. At first, Zheng Ji had been quite optimistic about his daughter-in-law Miao Ji. Later, Zheng Ji realized that after Miao Ji married over, she didn't bring much of the Miao family's resources to the Zheng family. Even the Miao family didn't recognize Miao Ji as a member of the Miao family. Later, when Zheng Kaiyuan was born, Miao Qi accepted Zheng Kaiyuan as a disciple. Through Miao Qi's connections, the Miao family began to take out some resources to support the Zheng family. If the Miao family's beast creation garden was willing to support Li Yun Miaocan like how Coiled Dragon Valley had done back then, the Zheng family would have been in a different situation in Indigo Azure City. Indigo Azure City was ranked at the bottom of the 36 major cities and didn't have a top faction. If the Zheng family could borrow the Miao family's power to annex the other two families and integrate Indigo Azure City's resources. After a few years of development, the Zheng family could become a new nobleman among the top factions. At the thought of this, Zheng Ji sighed. His three grandsons were all geniuses. His eldest grandson, Zheng Kading, was now a Radiance 100 sequence member and didn't put his mind on the development of the family's faction. In fact, Zheng Ji's earliest choice for the Zheng family patriarch was his youngest grandson, Zheng Kaiyan. Zheng Kaiyan was born with 6 fingers. He had been smart since young and had a lot of ideas. At a young age, he had shown his passion and talent for faction development. However, because of that accident that could not be investigated, Zheng Kaiyan had been in a wheelchair forever. He had also started to become eccentric and moody. For the sake of his reputation, Zheng Ji couldn't let a person in a wheelchair who couldn't stand up become the Zheng family patriarch. In the end, Zheng Ji's gaze was still on Zheng Kaiyuan. However, Zheng Kaiyuan was more passionate about the Miao family than the Zheng family. Ever since the Nix assembly ended, he hadn't returned to the Zheng family. Zheng Ji agreed to carry out the Blood Oath Extreme Duel with Sky City because of the Miao family's 2 Ultimate Emperor Realm experts who had 2 Pinnacle Myth 3 phase. It was because of these 2 Ultimate Emperor Realm experts who had 2 Pinnacle Myth 3 phase that Zheng Ji chose to take the risk. Zheng Ji always felt that it wasn't safe to target Sky City because of the Creation Master resources that Sky City possessed. However, Zheng Kaiyuan's attitude towards the Blood Oath Extreme Duel with Sky City was abnormally firm. In the end, Zheng Kaiyuan had to use his relationship with the Moon Empress disciple to finally convince Zheng Ji. It was definitely a good thing for the Zheng family patriarch, Miao Jinshan, to let Elder Han help the Zheng family in the Blood Oath Extreme Duel. However, Miao Ji said to let Elder Han replace a member of the Zheng family. What was the Zheng family? Wasn't the Zheng family a family? Furthermore, he was the only member of the Zheng family who would participate in the Blood Oath Extreme Duel. If he was replaced, the Zheng family would send 3 members of the Miao family to participate in the Blood Oath Extreme Duel. The other factions could spectate the Blood Oath Extreme Duel at the Extreme Duel. If the Zheng family only sent one of their own, it would be inevitable for people to talk behind their backs. If the Zheng family didn't send a single member, others would probably think that the Miao family had swallowed the Zheng family. Where would the Zheng family and himself put their reputation? End of this chapter. Chapter 1082. The Blood Oath battle consisted of 3 matches. The winner of the previous match could choose not to leave the arena and continue fighting. With Old Han around, Miao Ji could suggest to replace the other 2 peak emperors of the Miao family with someone from the Zheng family. From Miao Ji's words, Zheng Ji knew that Miao Ji didn't think of him or the Zheng family. Even though Miao Ji was the daughter-in-law of the Zheng family, her surname was still Miao. But when he saw Zheng Kaiyuan, who was being groomed as the head of the Zheng family, he was delighted and didn't think of the Zheng family at all. Zheng Ji seemed to have aged a few decades in an instant. Even his aura and sharpness had disappeared. Zheng Ji sighed. Forget it. How long can these old bones of mine manage the Zheng family? In the end, the younger generation of the Zheng family is the future of the Zheng family. But could the younger generation of the Zheng family really give the Zheng family a future? Zheng Ji suddenly thought of Zheng Kaiyan. If it was Zheng Kaiyan, he definitely wouldn't stand on the Zheng family's side and consider the Zheng family's problems. Zheng Kaiyuan turned to look at his grandfather Zheng Ji, who was pleasantly surprised. Zheng Kaiyuan, who had turned around, was stunned. He felt that his grandfather, Zheng Ji, gave him a different feeling, especially the way he looked at him. But Zheng Kaiyuan didn't think too much about it. Grandfather, why don't you come with us to find grandfather and see if he can get Old Han to help the Zheng family with the Blood Oath battle? Zheng Ji's cold heart died when he heard Zheng Kaiyuan's words. He had watched his grandson grow up. Did he expect him, the grandfather, to lower his voice and beg his grandfather? Zheng Ji tilted his head and looked at Zheng Kaiyuan. He seemed to be trying to figure out how Zheng Kaiyuan had thought of this and said it. At this moment, Zheng Ji felt that the future of the Zheng family was a joke. Forget it, I won't go. If you want to go, you can go. However, this old man must represent the Zheng family in the Zheng family's blood oath extreme battle. With that, Zheng Ji turned and left the room. Zheng Ji's words made Miao Ji frown. She looked very unhappy. However, Zheng Kaiyuan immediately understood what was going on with his grandfather. Usually, Zheng Kaiyuan would have gone to explain the situation to his grandfather. But this time Zheng Kaiyuan did not do so. In the past few days, he had been treated as a distinguished guest in the Miao family. Even the Miao family's previous eldest young master, Miao Zhuo, and the current eldest young master, Miao He, had to be polite to him because of his identity as the Moon Empress disciple and friend. Zheng Kaiyuan, who had been in such an environment for a long time, couldn't help but look down on the Zheng clan, a veteran force that he was born in. He had also lost some of the respect he had for his grandfather, the head of the family. When Miao Ji and Zheng Kaiyuan arrived at the Zheng family's main residence to meet Miao Jinshan was guiding Miao He on his creation master homework. After Miao Zhuo was crippled, Miao Jinshan single-handedly trained Miao He. He wanted to train Miao He so that Miao He's abilities were worthy of his status as the Miao family's young master. He had just hosted a welcoming banquet for the Zheng family, and now Miao Ji and Zheng Kaiyuan were asking to see him. This caused Miao Jinshan to frown. During this period of time, if there was anyone in the Miao family who disliked Zheng Kaiyuan the most, it would definitely not be Miao Zhuo, who had been ridiculed by Zheng Kaiyuan. Nor was it Miao He, who had been tricked by Zheng Kaiyuan. It was the Miao family's Beast Creation Garden's current family head, Miao Jinshan. Miao Zhuo didn't even need to say anything when Zheng Kaiyuan ridiculed Miao Zhuo. The rest of the Miao family would report this matter to Miao Jinshan. The conflict that had happened in the Spirit Food Pavilion that day was of great importance. Zheng Kaiyuan didn't say anything, but Miao He didn't dare to hide it. Miao He took the risk of being punished and told Miao Jinshan everything. He had also specifically mentioned how Zheng Kaiyuan had hit him while he was down in front of Lin Yuan and had nearly burned him. Zheng Kaiyuan's behavior toward Miao He could be said to have violated Miao Jinshan's taboo. Miao Jinshan almost couldn't tolerate Zheng Kaiyuan anymore. However, according to Miao He, Lin Yuan had indeed invited Zheng Kaiyuan to his home as a guest. This meant that the relationship between Zheng Kaiyuan and Lin Yuan was really like what Zheng Kaiyuan had said. It might even be better than what Zheng Kaiyuan had said. Therefore, Miao Jinshan suppressed his dislike for Zheng Kaiyuan and specially brought Miao He to the conference hall to receive Zheng Kaiyuan and Miao Ji, who had come to visit late at night. Miao He, who was following behind Miao Jinshan, revealed a sarcastic smile when he saw that his grandfather was heading to the guest hall instead of the study room. Zheng Kaiyuan was so arrogant, but in his grandfather's heart he was just a guest. It was the same for his aunt Miao Ji. A married daughter was like spilled water. If this water was splashed into the imperial garden, it would be stained with some of the imperial garden's value. However, if this water was splashed on the weeds, who would be willing to scoop up this dirty water? After Miao Jinshan received Miao Ji and Zheng Kaiyuan in the living room, Zheng Kaiyuan and Miao Ji left the living room excitedly. After seeing Miao Ji and Zheng Kaiyuan leave, Miao He couldn't help but ask, "Grandfather, are you really going to let Grandfather Han help the Zheng family in the Blood Oath Extreme Duel? How can a veteran faction like the Zheng family be worthy of Grandfather Han's help? Moreover, the Miao family is so great at this time, and the Zheng family is sending out such high-end combat power. It is really too conspicuous." After saying that, Miao He didn't continue. Miao He knew that if he continued he would have to mention his aunt, Miao Qi, and big brother Miao Zhuo. No matter how he looked at it, he would have the suspicion of trampling on his own family. Miao He's words made Miao Jinshan's expression darken. How could Miao Jinshan not know this? After the Nix assembly, many top factions that had worked with the Miao family before had a drastic change in attitude towards the Miao family. Many of their collaborations were forced to stop, causing the Miao family to suffer significant losses. At this moment, it would not be a wise choice for the Miao family to do anything. However, Miao Jinshan still had to rely on Zheng Kaiyuan to maintain his relationship with the Moon Empress disciple. The Coiling Dragon Valley had obtained so many golden lotus brocade stalks, and the most uncomfortable was the Beast Creation Garden, which had a hostile relationship with the Coiling Dragon Valley. The Beast Creation Garden was originally at a disadvantage compared to the Coiling Dragon Valley. If they still couldn't obtain the golden lotus brocade stalks, the Beast Creation Garden would be left behind by the Coiling Dragon Valley. In Miao Jinshan's opinion, if he followed Zheng Kaiyuan's wishes, Zheng Kaiyuan would also try his best to help the Miao family close the distance with Lin Yuan. Recently, the Miao family had sent a few apology letters to the Spirit Guard's young palatial lord, wanting to apologize for Miao Zhuo's incident in Yeyang Palace. However, these apology letters that were sent to the spirit guards were like leaves falling into the water. They didn't even cause a ripple. As long as the spirit guard's young palatial lord didn't reply, Miao Zhinshan's heart wouldn't be at ease. End of this chapter. Chapter 1083. Furthermore, if the major factions wanted to enter the Abyss world through the Class 6 Abyss Dimensional Rift, they would need the approval of the spirit guards. If they offended the chief guard's disciple and didn't receive her forgiveness, how was the Miao family going to enter the Abyss world? The Miao family's elder association had already discussed the development of the Abyss world many times and had even prepared the development personnel. If the Miao family couldn't enter the Abyss world, their previous preparations would be in vain. Even the Miao family would become the laughingstock of the veteran factions and pinnacle factions. Even those rising powers would poke at the Miao family's back and talk about them. Even if the Miao family still had the strength, their reputation and influence would fall from the sky and be trampled on by others. By then, no faction would be willing to cooperate with the Miao family's Beast Creation Garden. That way, the Miao family's Beast Creation Garden would truly penetrate the Earth's core. At the thought of this, Miao Zhinshan's expression became even more worried. In another half a month, the major factions would be able to enter the Abyss world with the approval of the spirit guards. The next morning, Lin Yuan woke up and stretched his body, feeling extremely comfortable. A night of peaceful sleep had washed away his fatigue. Lin Yuan felt that if he went to sleep when he was extremely sleepy, he would sleep exceptionally soundly for the entire night. Just as Lin Yuan was about to get up, he realized that Genius and Chimey were already up. However, Genius and Chimey were nestled in his embrace and didn't move. It was obvious that they were afraid of disturbing his sleep. Upon seeing that Lin Yuan had woken up, Genius and Chimey immediately pounced into Lin Yuan's embrace and played with him. Then Genius said in a childish voice, "Lin Yuan, Genius wants to go to the Spirit Lock Spatial Zone to teach those 100 Questions beasts. In another week or so, those 100 Questions beasts will all be able to reach Diamond X/Legend." Chimey immediately said, "Lin Yuan, Chimey also wants to go to the Spirit Lock Spatial Zone to sing. If you do the live streaming for a while longer, you will be able to obtain plenty of rewards for the Warm Sun Fund." Upon hearing Genius and Chimey's words, Lin Yuan couldn't help but sigh. The two little fellows that were originally sticking to him had grown up and had clear goals and things to do. Lin Yuan hugged Genius and Chimey before sending them back to the Spirit Lock Spatial Zone. According to what Genius had said, his 100 Questions Beast army would take shape in another month. 50 Diamond X/Legend 100 Questions Beasts were equivalent to 50 Pinnacle Class 3 Creation Masters. Furthermore, the 100 Questions Beast that Genius had taught had much more knowledge than those Pinnacle Class 3 Creation Masters. It was even more solid. After looking at the time, Lin Yuan realized that it was already 8:30 am under normal circumstances. The manor would have breakfast at around 7:30 am, and Wen Yu and Lu Jie would wake everyone up before 7:30 am. Wen Yu and Lu Jie didn't wake him up today, presumably because Lu Jie saw that he was too tired last night. He wanted to have a good rest today. When he went downstairs, he saw Wen Yu quickly flipping through stacks of paper documents on the table. Lu Jie, on the other hand, was filling a basket with crab dumplings. There was a small plate on the table with 3 pork dumplings and 3 crab roe dumplings on it. It was prepared according to Lin Yuan's usual appetite. Upon seeing Lin Yuan come down, Wen Yu spoke with a smile. "Young master, I've reorganized the information on the Dark Federation and confirmed that there are no mistakes. As for what happened to the Whale Ocean Trading Company, I have not asked Ji Feng in detail. Thus, I have not sorted out the detailed information." Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan nodded. He felt that there was no need to inform the Moon Empress about the Whale Ocean trade. Even if Lin Yuan accepted Ji Feng and learned from him that there had been a huge change in the Whale Ocean trading, he would not be able to do anything about it. However, this was just a family affair of the Whale Ocean trade. However, he had to drag out everything about the Tower Cannon and the Dark Continent to his master, the Moon Empress, regardless of how big or small it was. As Su Yiren was a dark emissary chosen by the 7 states, she knew the core secrets of the Dark Federation. Although the Dark Federation no longer existed, the information that Su Yiren had was very useful to the entire Radiance Federation. A part of it was even related to the 100-year plan of the Pagoda Cannon, the revival of the Slumbering One. Lu Jie put the food basket on the table and said after he finished the 3 pork pine kernel shumai and 3 crab roe dumplings on the plate, "Lin Yuan, do I have to wait for you at the foot of the Leaning Moon Mountain before going to Zhongzhe?" Lin Yuan shook his head in response. Big brother Lu, you go to Zhongzhe first. I'll go there directly at noon. After the question and answer session with teacher, I might be a little late. After saying that, Lin Yuan handed an ethereal jellyfish tentacle to Lu Jie. Upon seeing that, Lu Jie took the tentacle and said, then I'll put this tentacle at the entrance of Copper Crane Alley. Then I will place this tentacle at the entrance of Copper Crane Alley. It will be more convenient for you when you come here. After chatting with Lu Jie and Wen Yu for a while, Lin Yuan put the information about the Dark Federation and the Tower Cannon, as well as the food basket containing the crab roe dumplings, into the amber button-shaped diamond face storage box. Then Lin Yuan used the ethereal jellyfish's ability node to teleport to the Radiant Moon Palace's entrance. Upon seeing Lin Yuan, Yin Cha and Kai Cha, who were guarding the Radiant Moon Palace's entrance, hurriedly bowed. After bowing as a greeting, Yin Cha said, "Good morning, young lord." "Good morning, young lord. The Moon Empress is currently receiving guests in the front hall." After Yin Cha finished speaking, Kai Cha added, "The Bamboo Monarch's eldest disciple, Xia Qin, has brought the Bamboo Monarch's youngest disciple, Gu Lang, to pay a visit to the Moon Empress. It seems like they are here to thank the Moon Empress." After finishing her sentence, Kai Cha muttered something. The Moon Empress just returned from the Purple Bamboo Garden, and the people from the Purple Bamboo Garden came looking for her. I really don't know how much favor the Bamboo Monarch owes the Moon Empress. Just as Kai Cha finished speaking, she was hit on the back of her head by Yin Cha. Yin Cha gave Kai Cha a rebuking look. Kai Cha was truly impudent. She was already in her 40s, yet she was still so immature. How could a tea attendant casually fabricate the Bamboo Monarch's gratitude towards the Moon Empress? After being hit by Yin Cha, Kai Cha rubbed the back of her head in pain and stuck out her tongue. "It's because your highness doesn't know the situation. Let me explain it to your highness. If it was someone else, how could I possibly say such a thing?" Upon hearing Kai Cha's words, Lin Yuan raised his brows. He recalled the brocade box of astrological wisdom epiphyllum pollen that he had given to the Moon Empress. This brocade box of astrological wisdom epiphyllum pollen wasn't as simple as a favor to the Bamboo Monarch. A brocade box of astrological wisdom epiphyllum pollen was enough to save the Bamboo Monarch's love. It had also turned the situation of certain death into a harmonious coexistence between the two of them. End of this chapter. Chapter 1084. When he arrived at the Radiant Moon Palace's front hall, he saw his master, the Moon Empress, sitting on the moonlight throne. Xia Qin bent over and held a white jade box that was about 1.5 meters long in his hand. He held it in front of him. It was as though he was presenting a gift to his master, the Moon Empress. Gu Lang held a slightly smaller brocade box in his hand and did the same thing as Xia Qin. Unlike the white jade box in Xia Qin's hand, the brocade box in Gu Lang's hand had a jeweled pavilion embroidered with golden patterns. The items in the box were also emitting a bright green luster. The shade of green seemed to be the purest shade of green in the world. The green was majestic like that of an emperor. At first glance, one would feel that all the greenery in the world couldn't compare to this pure green. The brocade box was embroidered with the symbol of the elegant treasure pavilion. It was likely that Wang Fuxiang had taken the brocade box to thank the Moon Empress. When Lin Yuan arrived at the Radiant Moon Palace's entrance, the Moon Empress sensed his arrival. Upon seeing that Lin Yuan had arrived at the main hall, the Moon Empress waved her hand and spoke. "Little Yuan, come sit in front of Master." As the Moon Empress spoke, Mystic Moon, who was standing behind her, brought over a chair that was slightly smaller than the Moon Empress Moonlight Throne. This chair was 80% to 90% similar to the Moon Empress Moonlight Throne, and the materials used were almost the same as the Moonlight Throne. Upon hearing his master, the Moon Empress, calling out to him, Lin Yuan went to greet her. After that, he nodded at Xian Yu as a form of greeting. Lin Yuan sat on the seat beside the Moon Empress Moonlight Throne, causing Mystic Moon's brows to jump. Xian Yu didn't know what had happened to the Moon Empress. Not only did she replicate the Moon Empress's royal robe for the young lord and the others, but she also didn't wear it. Now he had made a copy of the Moonlight Throne for the young highness. Xian Yu felt that the Moon Empress' love for the young highness could no longer be described as simple pampering. She simply treated the young highness as her own eyeball and cherished him. Upon seeing Gu Lang, Lin Yuan raised his brows. He and Gu Lang had exchanged contact information at the Nix assembly previously. After listening to Long Tao's thoughts, Lin Yuan took the initiative to create a group chat and establish a faction with Gu Lang. After 2 chats in the group, everyone became closer to each other. Although Lin Yuan hadn't interacted with Gu Lang for a long time and hadn't interacted with him many times, Gu Lang wasn't an ordinary person. However, with common interests, Lin Yuan and Gu Lang could be considered friends. Everyone had just had a group video chat last night, but Gu Lang didn't mention that he was going to the Radiant Moon Palace this morning. Gu Lang, who was holding the brocade box, wasn't surprised to see Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan was the young lord of the Radiant Moon Palace, so it was normal for him to come to the Radiant Moon Palace. Gu Lang had come to the Radiant Moon Palace this morning because his eldest senior brother, Xia Chen, had informed him at the last moment. If Gu Lang had known last night that he would be coming to the Radiant Moon Palace today, Gu Lang felt that he might as well have informed Lin Yuan in advance. If Lin Yuan could introduce her, it wouldn't be so troublesome to meet the Moon Empress. The Moon Empress looked at Lin Yuan, who was sitting beside her, and revealed a faint smile. Then the Moon Empress looked at the jade box in Xia Chen's hands and spoke with some surprise. This Empress remembers that after the Bamboo Monarch's golden silk Emperor Bamboo broke through that realm, it only produced 2 seedlings. I heard from the Bamboo Monarch that one of these 2 seedlings was given to one of his disciples many years ago. It seems that the brocade box contains the Bamboo Monarch's remaining golden silk Emperor Bamboo that hasn't been contracted yet. Forming a contract with the golden silk Emperor Bamboo has an extremely high requirement for one's soul. The sacred source lifeform must be at the late stage of class 4 to ensure that the golden silk Emperor Bamboo's bamboo force won't impact the soul when forming a contract with it. The Bamboo Monarch didn't leave something like the golden silk Emperor Bamboo for his descendants, but he was actually willing to bring it to this Empress's Radiant Night Palace. When Lin Yuan heard the Moon Empress mention the golden silk Emperor Bamboo, he couldn't help but look at the jade box. There was a purplish gold bamboo shoot that was nearly 1 meter long in the jade box. The purplish gold bamboo shoot was like a rich jade, and the golden threads on it were like rays of light that were scattered in the sunset. It was abnormally beautiful. Lin Yuan knew about the golden silk Emperor Bamboo. Lin Yuan wasn't the only one who knew about it. Even the rising factions would know about the Bamboo Monarch's signature Fei, which was one of the 3 Class 5 creation masters. The golden silk Emperor Bamboo wasn't a combat class Fei, but a Fei with special abilities. The golden silk Emperor Bamboo's abilities were all to support the creation master's abilities. It could be said that the Bamboo Monarch's current achievements couldn't be separated from the golden silk Emperor Bamboo's help. His master, the Moon Empress, said that the Bamboo Monarch had given his disciple a golden silk Emperor Bamboo 10 years ago. The golden silk Emperor Bamboo had a requirement for one's soul. 10 years ago, Gu Lang hadn't even reached the age to form a contract with a sacred source life form, let alone raise it to the late stage of class 4. The Bamboo Monarch only had 2 disciples, so the disciple who had formed the contract with the golden silk Emperor Bamboo should have been Xia Chen, who was holding the jade box. If not for the brocade box of astrological epiphyllum pollen, the Bamboo Monarch would have left this uncontracted golden silk Emperor Bamboo for Gu Lang. In fact, Lin Yuan had guessed correctly. When Gu Lang heard the Moon Empress words, he raised his head and looked at the golden silk Emperor Bamboo in the jade box. His eyes revealed a reluctant expression. Gu Lang had been working hard to raise his sacred source lifeform star class. When Zhong Zai's sacred source lifeform was at the late stage of class 3, Gu Lang's sacred source lifeform was already at class 4. This was closely related to Gu Lang's desire to obtain the golden silk Emperor Bamboo from the Bamboo Monarch. It was because of this golden silk Emperor Bamboo that Gu Lang had been constantly encouraging Gu Lang. However, when the Bamboo Monarch had chosen to give this uncontracted golden silk Emperor Bamboo to the Moon Empress as a thank you gift, Gu Lang didn't have any objections. Even if this golden silk Emperor Bamboo should have belonged to him. Gu Lang understood how much the Radiant Moon Palace owed the Purple Bamboo Garden. As the Bamboo Monarch's youngest disciple, Gu Lang understood his master's intentions. Without the box of astrological epiphyllum pollen, his master would have to choose between him and his wife. His master would definitely choose to abandon him without hesitation to protect his wife. It could be said that the Moon Empress' arrival with the pollen was equivalent to saving his master's life. Even if Gu Lang had to pay with his life, let alone an uncontracted golden silk Emperor Bamboo, Gu Lang would be willing. No matter how much Gu Lang understood the Radiant Moon Palace's kindness to the Purple Bamboo Garden, humans had emotions and desires. Even if he couldn't bear to part with it, he would still be reluctant. Losing the golden silk Emperor Bamboo had a huge impact on Gu Lang. Without the golden silk Emperor Bamboo, Gu Lang wouldn't be able to inherit the Bamboo Monarch's creation master technique that used the golden silk Emperor Bamboo as the main support method. This made Gu Lang's status as the Bamboo Monarch's disciple seem somewhat nominal. If Gu Lang wanted to grow in the future, he could only try to open up a path that belonged to him. End of this chapter. Chapter 1085. However, opening up one's own path was easier said than done. Every Pinnacle Class 4 Creation Master would want to open up a path that belonged to them. However, after so many years, none of these Pinnacle Class 4 Creation Masters who wanted to open up their own path had succeeded. At that moment, the Moon Empress looked at the brocade box in Gu Lang's hand. Upon seeing the item in the brocade box, the Moon Empress looked tempted. There really are some treasures hidden in the elegant jade pavilion. There's actually Emperor's Rhyme Spirit Jade, and it's the best of the glass type. Compared to the golden silk Emperor Bamboo, the pure spiritual energy in this glass type Emperor's Charm Spirit Jadeite is more useful to me. The Moon Empress said to Mystic Moon, who was beside her. Shenyu, go and accept these 2 items for this Empress. Upon hearing that, Mystic Moon stepped forward and took the jade box from Xia Chen's hands as well as the brocade box from Gu Lang's hands before returning to the Moon Empress' side. The Moon Empress scrutinized the glass-type Imperial Aura Spirit Jade that was the size of a human head. Then he reached out to pick up the uncontracted golden silk Emperor Bamboo from the jade box and placed it in Lin Yuan's hand. Little Yuan, take this golden silk Emperor Bamboo. The bamboo leaves of the golden thread Emperor Bamboo can purify the concentration of spirit energy. The bamboo pole can assist in the concoction of spirit liquid, shortening the formation speed of the spirit liquid, and stirring the spirit liquid with the bamboo branch can increase the fusion rate of the spirit materials in the spirit liquid. If you carry out the contract, it will be of great help to the Creation Master's ability. Upon hearing the Moon Empress' words, Lin Yuan looked up at Gu Lang and immediately saw Gu Lang's reluctant expression. Lin Yuan reached out and took the golden silk Emperor Bamboo from the Moon Empress. However, Lin Yuan had no intention of contracting the golden silk Emperor Bamboo. The golden silk Emperor Bamboo might be a treasure to other Creation Masters, but it was nothing to Lin Yuan. This was because Lin Yuan was not using conventional Creation Master methods to enhance phase. However, since it was bestowed by his master, the Moon Empress, he did not reject it. After experiencing some things, Lin Yuan no longer thought of things so simply, and he was no longer so stubborn. He would no longer be as stubborn as he was in the past, thinking of relying on himself for everything. Even if his master, the Moon Empress, gave him something, he would not accept it. Lin Yuan still had to rely on himself, but he would no longer reject the things that his master, the Moon Empress, had given him. At the same time, he recalled what his master, the Moon Empress, had said when she had seen the glass-type Emperor Aura Spirit Jade. This meant that his master, the Moon Empress, had a need for pure spirit chi. Furthermore, pure spirit chi was very important to his master, the Moon Empress. Otherwise, given Lin Yuan's understanding of the Moon Empress, if it was not important, she would definitely not reveal an abnormal expression when she saw the glass-type Emperor Aura Spirit Jade. Speaking of pure spirit chi, Lin Yuan had plenty of it. However, now that Gu Lang and Xia Chen were here, it clearly wasn't a good time to mention pure spirit chi to the Moon Empress. Although Lin Yuan treated Gu Lang as a good friend, he was still able to differentiate between close and distant. There were some things that Lin Yuan could tell the Moon Empress because she was his master and was like family to him. However, there were some things that he would never tell his friends no matter how close they were. Lin Yuan's arrival made the Moon Empress no longer in the mood to talk to Xia Chen and Gu Lang in the front hall. I already understand Bamboo Monarch's intentions. Go back and tell Bamboo Monarch not to take any more treasures from the Radiant Moon Palace. I don't lack treasures. If I need to trouble Bamboo Monarch with anything in the future, I will naturally ask. Upon hearing the Moon Empress' words, Gu Lang and Xia Chen hurriedly responded. Xia Chen replied, Moon Empress, I will leave the Leaning Moon Mountain with Junior Brother to report to Master. Before Gu Lang left, he looked at Lin Yuan and waved his hand as a farewell. Then he left the Radiant Moon Palace with Xia Chen. After leaving the Radiant Moon Palace, Xia Chen looked at Gu Lang with a gentle gaze. Junior Brother, do you remember the exclusive skill that my Golden Silk Emperor Bamboo obtained when it became a myth breed? My Golden Silk Emperor Bamboo is now at the peak of Myth 3 and will soon become a creation breed. After becoming a creation breed, according to the exclusive skill that my Golden Silk Emperor Bamboo obtained, I can use the Calamity of Creation to rebirth the Golden Silk Emperor Bamboo. Through the attack of the Calamity of Creation, I can completely erase the traces of me on the reborn Golden Silk Emperor Bamboo. Master gave away the golden silk emperor bamboo that originally belonged to you, so I will give you my golden silk emperor bamboo. Gu Lang hurriedly shook his head and grabbed Xia Chen's sleeve. Eldest senior brother, you mustn't. Even if you give me your golden silk emperor bamboo, I don't want it. If you really do that, I won't be a creation master in the future. As Gu Lang's eldest senior brother, Xia Chen treated Gu Lang meticulously. The bamboo monarch had been busy finding a partner for so many years, and Gu Lang had been brought up by Xia Chen for more than half of his life. Gu Lang knew very well how good his eldest senior brother was to him. However, Gu Lang accepted his eldest senior brother's kindness, but it didn't mean that his eldest senior brother could harm him to help him. Upon hearing Gu Lang's words, Xia Chen sighed softly. His youngest junior brother's creation master talent was stronger than his, but because he didn't have the golden silk emperor bamboo, his youngest junior brother could no longer take master's path. Sigh. Xia Chen's sigh was filled with helplessness. Xia Chen's sigh was coincidentally heard by Cold Moon, who had just returned to the Radiant Moon Palace. Cold Moon curled her lips. Was Bamboo Monarch's eldest disciple sighing and lamenting that Bamboo Monarch was a troublesome person? From Tsang Yu's point of view, the Bamboo Monarch was indeed a troublesome person. He was still so affectionate despite his age. Isn't it good to be single like me? Amen. Whoever dared to chase him was lusting after his body, and he would definitely break the legs of those who dared to chase him. Just like Marquis Jingshi, who was still sitting in a wheelchair. When they arrived at the Radiant Moon Palace's inner palace, Lin Yuan hurriedly took out the food basket from the diamond face storage box and said to the Moon Empress, "Master, this is the crab dumpling that Lu Jie made this morning. It's still warm." The Moon Empress replied with a smile. "Then we can have some snacks for lunch. At noon I'll make you a honey lotus pond carp. I learned how to make this from Tsang Yue." Upon hearing the Moon Empress' words, Mystic Moon, who was standing at the side, didn't dare to speak. "Moon Empress, are you sure that every time you want to cook for His Young Highness, it's good for him? Although the food you cook is not bad and can be eaten. But it definitely couldn't compare to a tiny restaurant that only had a few customers in a day. Honey lotus pond carp? The Moon Empress can't be thinking of stewing those diamond spirit siphon goldfish in the lotus pond with the silver auspicious gold luster cassia nectar, right?" Chapter 1086. In the past, as long as the Moon Empress did not move her chopsticks for half an hour, the food would turn cold. No matter how precious the ingredients were, the Moon Empress would not take another bite. I wonder how many bottom lines the Moon Empress has crossed in front of the young lord. Just as she was about to mourn for the diamond spirit siphon goldfish in the lotus pond, Lin Yuan said, "Master, I'm going to Zhong Zhe's place for lunch. Master, I'm going to Zhong Zhe's place for lunch at noon. We made an appointment in advance." The Moon Empress was a little surprised. She did not expect Lin Yuan to befriend the Chef Supreme's little disciple. She had seen Zhong Zhe before, and in her opinion, Zhong Zhe was definitely a strange child. However, the Moon Empress would not reject Lin Yuan eating with his friends. On the contrary, as Lin Yuan's master, the Moon Empress hoped that Lin Yuan could interact more with the outside world and make more friends. Compared to how strong Lin Yuan had become, the Moon Empress hoped that Lin Yuan would have a peaceful and carefree life. She recalled that she had given Lin Yuan a fei made from the sacred source life form, the origin water, and asked, "Little Yuan, have you nurtured the origin water? Little Yuan, have you nurtured the origin water?" Lin Yuan nodded and was about to summon Blue Jade for the Moon Empress to take a look when the Moon Empress continued, "Nurture it. Little Yuan, when you grow up, use it as your main fei or a fei with great strategic significance. Don't show it to others easily. When an enemy reveals their trump card, it's best to kill the person who sees your trump card. This way you can guarantee that you will not be targeted." Upon hearing the Moon Empress' words, Lin Yuan nodded in agreement. It could be said that his master, the Moon Empress, had reminded him many times that only he knew his trump cards. Lin Yuan had known this principle for a long time. Lin Yuan had been doing this for a long time. Lin Yuan thought about how much the Moon Empress valued the pure spirit chi in the glass-type Emperor Aura Spirit Jadeite. "Master, do you need pure spirit chi?" The Moon Empress looked at Lin Yuan with a faint smile and reached out to touch the glass-type Emperor Aura Spirit Jadeite. "No spirit chi professional doesn't need pure spirit chi, and I am no exception. The spirit chi contained in this glass-type Imperial Aura Spirit Jade is much purer than the spirit chi concocted by a Class 5 creation master. Such pure spirit chi can already allow some fays that have a special reaction to highly concentrated spirit chi to stimulate their body's genetic model and even obtain a chance to purify their bloodline. Of course, even if the concentration can't purify the bloodline immediately, it's still good to trigger the genetic model. After saying that, the Moon Empress took the glass-type Emperor Charm Spirit Jadeite in front of Lin Yuan. Although the spirit chi that I concoct is not as concentrated as the spirit chi contained in the glass-type Imperial Charm Spiritual Jade, it is almost there. The pure spiritual energy in this glass-type Emperor Aura Spirit Jade will undoubtedly be better for you to use. Upon hearing the Moon Empress words, Lin Yuan felt a warm current gush out of his heart. This heat almost made Lin Yuan's eyes turn red. At such a time, his master, the Moon Empress, had chosen to leave the treasure to him when it was useful to him. Lin Yuan felt that there was no need to hide the fact that he possessed pure spirit chi from his master who was so considerate towards him. However, as the Moon Empress disciple, Lin Yuan would remember every instruction from the Moon Empress. Therefore Lin Yuan would not choose to expose Morbius' spirit lock spatial zone and his body's secret. After thinking about it, Lin Yuan chose to use another method to give the pure spirit chi to the Moon Empress. Master, how much pure spirit chi do you need? The Moon Empress looked at Lin Yuan and did not understand why he would ask such a question. Such a precious resource like pure spirit chi would normally only be used to trigger a phase genetic model, allowing phase that are sensitive to highly concentrated spirit chi to stimulate their bloodline. Therefore, I don't need to consume a lot of high concentrated spirit chi. Upon hearing the Moon Empress words, Lin Yuan asked again. What if I keep using high concentrated spirit chi to nurture phase and raise their grade and quality? When the Moon Empress heard Lin Yuan's words, she did not know how to answer for a moment. After staying silent for a moment, the Moon Empress said, "It is naturally beneficial to use high concentrated spirit chi to nurture phase and raise their grade and quality. Of the two phase, one will be enhanced to bronze grade with pure spirit chi, while the other will be enhanced to bronze grade with ordinary spirit chi. Their grade and quality are the same, and their combat power does not seem to be much different. However, in the end, the Fey nurtured with pure spirit chi will definitely defeat the Fey nurtured with ordinary spirit chi." When Lin Yuan had realized that his Fey's grade was too low, he had thought of asking Master Hong Shen to concoct a spirit fluid to help increase his Fey's grade. Ultimately, after a mental struggle, Lin Yuan suppressed the idea of asking Master Hong Shen for help. Now that he had asked the Moon Empress this question, Lin Yuan's other thoughts had completely vanished. This was because Lin Yuan was even more determined to use the best nurturing method to let his phase advance to the strongest path. After asking the two questions, Lin Yuan said to the Moon Empress in a solemn tone, "Master, I have spirit chi with a higher concentration than this glass-type Emperor Charm Spirit Jade." Master, I have spirit chi with a higher concentration than the spirit chi in this glass-type Emperor Charm Spirit Jade. Originally, Lin Yuan was planning to give her some spirit chi crystals. He had originally planned to give his master the Moon Empress some spirit chi crystals. He had yet to count the spirit chi crystals that the Pure Land of Bliss had obtained from absorbing the Karma Gladiolus and the pre-ordered Water Lotus World Grace. Moreover, if he wanted to obtain spirit chi crystals in the future, he would only need to absorb the World Grace after the Myth Breed Phase World Cleansing. It wasn't hard to obtain a Myth Breed Phase World Grace. If he wanted to, he could receive a few on Star Web now. However, based on what the Moon Empress had just said, he knew that she had not used much pure spirit chi at once. The spirit chi crystal had another drawback. After the spirit chi crystal was crushed, the pure spirit energy contained in the spirit chi crystal would be exhausted immediately. Otherwise, the pure spirit chi within the spirit chi crystal would spill out into the world. Therefore, he needed to think of other ways to give pure spirit chi to the Moon Empress. At that moment, Lin Yuan thought of a flower fey, the spirit containment peony, that was unique to Leaning Moon Mountain's garden and had never been seen in the outside world. With that in mind, Lin Yuan said, "That's right. Master, please give me a cultivation room and a spirit-containing peony. In half an hour, I will be able to give you spirit chi with a higher concentration than this glass Emperor Aura Spirit Jade." Chapter 1087. If someone else had said this, the Moon Empress would not have believed it. However, it was Lin Yuan who said it. Even if he was joking with her, the Moon Empress was willing to listen to him. When she thought about the golden lotus brocade stalks that Lin Yuan had given her, the Moon Empress felt that Lin Yuan was not lying. The Moon Empress immediately asked Cold Moon, who had just returned to the inner palace, to prepare the spirit-containing peony for Lin Yuan. Then she said to Lin Yuan, "Little Yuan, the breeding room next to my breeding room is for you. If you want to nurture phase in the Radiant Moon Palace, just go to that breeding room. Apart from your breeding room, no one else will be able to enter." In a short while, Cold Moon returned to the Radiant Moon Palace with the spirit-containing peony. Lin Yuan saw that Cold Moon Empress was holding a large handful of golden and red peonies. There were at least 8 or 9 of them. The roots of these spirit-containing peonies were still covered in soil. From the color of the soil, Lin Yuan could tell that the soil was completely produced in the swamp world. When the Moon Empress saw Cold Moon holding the spirit-containing peonies, her eyelids twitched. The Moon Empress had always known that Cold Moon was not feminine and did not like flowers. However, Cold Moon was too majestic to be so ruthless in urging flowers. How could anyone pursue such a Cold Moon? When the Moon Empress saw that Lin Yuan was also looking at the spirit-containing peonies in Cold Moon's hands, she explained to him. These spirit-containing peonies are a special fey that I used a high concentration of spirit chi in swamp soil to induce evolution and mutation. Using these spirit-containing peonies to store pure spirit chi can indeed prevent the pure spirit chi from leaking out. What Lin Yuan valued was the spirit-containing peonies' ability. The spirit-containing peonies could absorb the outside environment's spirit chi and store it in the flower. When the spirit-containing peonies' flower was filled with pure spirit chi, the bowl-sized flower would shrink into a flower bud that was half the size of a fist. When the spirit chi in the flower bud was exhausted, the flower bud would once again bloom into a bowl-sized flower. Could be said to be very magical. What he needed to do was to let the soul paper peony absorb the pure spirit chi in the spirit lock spatial zone and let each soul paper peony blossom 5 to 6 golden red flowers into flower buds. At that time, his master, the Moon Empress, would be able to freely use the pure spirit chi in the nightmare spirit peony's flower bud. She wouldn't need to crush it and use it up like spirit chi crystals. When he arrived at the breeding room that the Moon Empress had specially built for him in the Radiant Moon Palace, he was immediately stunned by everything inside. It could be said that the incubation room that the Moon Empress had built for herself was exactly the same as the Moon Empress' original incubation room. The tools in the breeding room were almost identical as well. After closing the door to the breeding room, he took a deep breath and entered the spirit lock spatial zone with the 10 nightmare spirit peonies he had received from Cold Moon. After entering the spirit lock spatial zone, Lin Yuan immediately dealt with the 10 soul battle peonies that Cold Moon had uprooted. These nightmare spirit peonies all had some swamp soil on them. If he planted these nightmare spirit peonies on the pure land of bliss, the swamp soil would definitely contaminate the pure land of bliss pure white sand. However, he could not plant them on the pure land of bliss either. Roots were abnormally important for plant phase. If he didn't plant them on the pure land of bliss and let these nightmare spirit peonies' broken roots recover, it would definitely affect the state of the nightmare spirit peonies' flowers. This would cause each golden red peony to absorb less spirit chi. When Lin Yuan dealt with the swamp soil on the 10 nightmare spirit peonies' roots, the nightmare spirit peonies had already started to absorb the pure spirit chi in the spirit lock spatial zone. Upon seeing this, Lin Yuan revealed a smile. Each nightmare spirit peony could only absorb a limited amount of pure spirit chi and couldn't replace the spirit chi crystals that contained a massive amount of pure spirit chi. However, the nightmare spirit peonies were an excellent way for Lin Yuan to bring the pure spirit chi in the spirit lock spatial zone to the outside world. After meticulously dealing with the swamp soil on the nightmare spirit peonies' roots, Lin Yuan planted the 10 nightmare spirit peonies side by side on the pure land of bliss. The nightmare spirit peonies that were planted on the pure land of bliss quickly recovered their health. As their bodies swayed, they stored the pure spirit chi in the spirit lock spatial zone into the flowers. After watching for a few minutes, Lin Yuan realized that the speed at which the nightmare spirit peonies stored pure spirit chi wasn't as fast as he had imagined. After a few minutes, the bowl-sized peonies only showed signs of shrinking. Lin Yuan didn't bother about the nightmare spirit peonies and let them slowly absorb the pure spirit chi in the spirit lock spatial zone. Upon seeing that Genius was using the interconnection tales to teach the 500 questions beasts about creation master knowledge, Lin Yuan walked forward and rubbed Genius' little head. Genius, let me use the spirit chi crystals to increase your grade. When the time comes, you'll be able to teach these 100 questions beasts more easily. After the previous evolution, Genius had 3 bronze tails, one more tail when it became a fantasy breed, and another tail when it reached silver. Now the Silver Eye/Fantasy Eye Genius already had 5 tails. Lin Yuan felt that as Genius's grade continued to increase, the number of tails would increase as well. The increase in the number of tails allowed Genius' exclusive skill, the interconnection tails, to increase the number of targets it could connect to. This was also the same as increasing the efficiency of Genius' exclusive skill, the interconnection tails. When Genius heard Lin Yuan's words, it let out a delighted meow. Lin Yuan, now that Genius's grade has increased, Genius will be able to help Lin Yuan even more. Genius wants to help Lin Yuan even more. Upon hearing Genius's words, Lin Yuan carried Genius up. Lin Yuan thought to himself while rubbing Genius's furry tail. Genius, this little fellow is always so considerate. Chimey was currently live streaming on Star Web, and Lin Yuan didn't disturb it while watching it. Gray, which had been locked up in the Spirit Lock spatial zone, immediately came over when it saw Lin Yuan. Following closely behind Gray was the Wind Speed Rapid Antelope, which had been upgraded to Legend after consuming the Wind-type Heavenly Maiden grade Elemental Pearls. When Lin Yuan saw Gray flying to his side, he felt a headache. Lin Yuan's headache wasn't because Gray was clingy, but because Gray couldn't enter the main world to absorb the natural weather. Although there were weather changes in the dimensional world, Lin Yuan didn't feel at ease letting Gray out even in the main world. It was even more impossible to let Gray out in the dimensional world and let it wantonly absorb the weather in the dimensional world. Lin Yuan's foundation was almost all in the main world, and his master, the Moon Empress, was also in the royal capital. If there was really a problem because of Gray's identity as the favored spirit, with his master around, there was always a possibility of calming things down. However, if Gray absorbed the weather in the swamp world and caused the weather changes in the swamp world to attract powerful apostles, all of Lin Yuan's arrangements in the swamp world would be destroyed. End of this chapter. Chapter 1088. Therefore, how to increase Gray's strength had become Lin Yuan's current problem. As for the Wind Speed Rapid Antelope, it should be about to welcome a fortuitous opportunity. Lin Yuan looked at the Wind Speed Rapid Antelope's new green fur and khaki fur that was about to fade. He knew that the Wind Speed Rapid Antelope's bloodline would evolve soon. Lin Yuan played with Gray for 3 to 5 minutes and continued to feed the Wind Speed Rapid Antelope a Wind Elemental Pearl. Lin Yuan squatted on the ground and counted the spirit chi crystals he had obtained from the Karma Gladiolus and the World Grace of the Water Lotus. After counting, Lin Yuan realized that he had obtained a total of 840 spirit chi crystals this time. This made Lin Yuan abnormally happy, and he felt a sense of security from having a massive amount of resources. The spirit chi crystals in Lin Yuan's hands were different from before. One spirit chi crystal was equivalent to 10 before. Previously, 19 spirit chi crystals had been needed to upgrade Silver Eye/Fantasy Eye Genius to gold. Now only 2 spirit chi crystals were needed. This time Lin Yuan took out a total of 211 spirit chi crystals. Lin Yuan calculated that these 211 spirit chi crystals were enough for Genius to upgrade to Diamond Eye/Fantasy Eye. Lin Yuan had originally planned to let Genius reach Diamond X. However, it was clearly unrealistic to use 840 spirit chi crystals to raise Genius grade to Diamond X/Fantasy Eye. Even if he used all of them, he could only upgrade Genius to Diamond 7/Fantasy Eye at most. Therefore, Lin Yuan planned to keep the remaining 519 spirit chi crystals to enhance his other phase. There was not much difference between upgrading Genius to Diamond Eye and Diamond X. Lin Yuan mainly wanted to see if Genius could obtain a trace of fortuitous opportunity or use and grasp soul power through abilities. This way, Genius could upgrade from a Pinnacle Class 3 Creation Master to a Pinnacle Class 4 Creation Master. It was a known fact that Genius had already learned the knowledge of Class 4 Scholar, Class 4 Fey Observer, and Class 4 Spiritual Ingredient Analyst. As Lin Yuan constantly crushed the 211 spirit chi crystals, Genius grade was also constantly increasing. This time, Genius grade wasn't as painful as when it had become a fantasy breed. Everything happened naturally. The original 5 tails on Genius' back kept increasing, and a 6th and a 7th tail grew out of it. Genius fur had also become softer and finer. The biggest change was in Genius' eyes. Genius's original eyes were azure blue, and they looked like blue tourmalines that could be seen into the depths of the world. However, Genius, which was constantly advancing, had the aura of a king surging in its eyes. The originally blue tourmaline eyes were also filled with a layer of glass-like substance. This layer of material faintly emitted the power of souls. When Lin Yuan sensed the soul spirit power emitting from Genius, he had a delighted expression as he crushed the last spirit chi crystal. When Lin Yuan crushed the last spirit chi crystal, the 8th white tail grew out from Genius' back. Lin Yuan did not know how to describe Genius, which had reached Diamond Eye/Fantasy Eye, for a moment. It was clearly a small beast that was only the size of 2 palms, but it had 8 fluffy and elegant long tails that were almost twice as long as its body. Not only did the 8 long tails on the 2 palm-sized little beasts not look bloated, but it also gave off a kind of otherworldly aura. Each long tail was like white silk that was dancing in the wind, and it was even smoother and elegant than white silk. While Lin Yuan was still in a daze, Genius had already pounced into Lin Yuan's embrace and spoke in a childish voice. Lin Yuan, Genius can now do things that only Class 4 Creation Masters can do. But Lin Yuan can do these things that only Class 4 Creation Masters can do. Genius should do things that a Class 3 Creation Master can do. Genius can now use its soul spirit power to concoct Class 3 spirit liquids much faster than before. After speaking to Lin Yuan, Genius meowed and called the 50-100 questions beasts in the spirit lock spatial zone over. Genius then walked in front of each 100 questions beast and shot out a spiritual energy thread from its eyes, injecting it into each 100 questions beast's body. It was as though Genius had placed its mark on each 100 questions beast, and each 100 questions beast had become Genius' possession. Upon seeing this, Lin Yuan used Morbius True Data to check on Genius. Fey name: Internet of All Things Beast, Fey species, Spirit Cat species / Smart Cat species, Fey grade, Diamond 1/10. Fey type: Spiritual / Soul, Fey quality, Fantasy eye abilities: Frowny face, precise memory. When memorizing something, it is able to accurately remember every detail. Knowledge analysis: able to conduct a multifaceted analysis of the memorized knowledge. Based on the details of the knowledge, it will be able to make the most conjecture according to the knowledge. Spiritual expansion: uses the host's spiritual energy as the contractor's spiritual energy reserve. The contractor might not be able to casually use the spiritual expansion to increase the spiritual energy reserve, but when the host receives spiritual damage, the host can use the spiritual expansion's spiritual energy to resist. Smart Cat Spirit: the pioneer life form of the Smart Cat species that created the glory of the Smart Cat species. Able to use spiritual energy to form a contract with other Smart Cat species life forms to control the life and death of the Smart Cat species phase. It will also be able to share the Smart Cat species' spiritual energy. Spirit substitution: through the interaction between different spiritual energy, it will cause a change in spiritual energy. It will consume spiritual energy to convert spiritual energy into soul spirit power. Spirit tail stimulation: when using soul spirit power, it can consume a tail to double the original soul spirit power. Without a tail, the spirit tail stimulation will not be able to be used. Exclusive trait: Frowny face tool transformation: able to turn into a tool for the contractor to use. Connected tail: link life forms according to the number of tails. The linked life forms will be able to share thoughts and have a telepathic connection. At a glance, Lin Yuan realized that Genius, which had reached Diamond Eye / Fantasy Eye, was no longer a pure spiritual type. It had become a spiritual soul dual type Fey. It also meant that Lin Yuan didn't need to worry about the problem that he had been thinking about previously. Genius had solved it perfectly during its evolution process. At the same time, Lin Yuan also knew what was going on with Genius's behavior in front of every 100 questions beast. Genius had used its gold ability, Smart Cat Spirit, to form a contract with the other 100 questions beasts. Genius used its spiritual energy to form a contract with the other 100 questions beasts to control their life and death. At the same time, it unilaterally shared the other 100 questions beast's spiritual energy. When Lin Yuan saw the Smart Cat Spirit's introduction under True Data, he blinked. End of this chapter. Chapter 1089. The Pioneer of the Intelligent Cat Genus, the Glory of the Intelligent Cat Genus. There were many species of spirit cats, but there was only one species of intelligent cats. It was the 100 Questions Beast. The 100 Questions Beast had never evolved before. It could be said that Genius was the first 100 Questions Beast to evolve into a Fey. It was not impossible to say that Genius was the pioneer of the intelligent cat family, and it had created the glory of the intelligent cat family. Could the Smart Cat Spirit ability be related to Genius being the first 100 Questions Beast to evolve into a Fey? However, Lin Yuan could only guess about this and had no way to verify it. As a sound bird, Chimey had been the pioneer of the sound bird bloodline all the way until now. However, it wasn't as if sound birds had never evolved before. The songstress bird had evolved from sound birds. Hence, Chimey's situation was different from Genius. Since it was a problem that could not be verified, Lin Yuan did not want to waste time to look into it. He turned around and continued to check on Genius Platinum's skill, Soul Replacement. It seemed like Genius had used its Platinum skill, Soul Replacement, to convert its mental strength into soul power. According to the skill introduction of the Platinum skill, Spirit Replacement, Genius had to rely on the interaction between different mental powers to convert mental power into soul power. Genius skill, the Intelligent Cat Spirit, could unilaterally share the mental power of other 100 Questions beasts. This also meant that the more 100 Questions beasts that Genius contracted with the Smart Cat Spirit, the stronger Genius soul power would be. It seemed like he would have to purchase another batch of 100 Questions beasts for Genius to form a contract with. It wasn't that Lin Yuan hadn't thought about the 100 Questions beast's loyalty. His evolution of the 100 Questions beast had allowed the 100 Questions beast to obtain the abilities of a creation master. It was definitely a shocking matter. If this was leaked, it would definitely cause a revolution in the origin world. This was not what Lin Yuan wanted to see. However, Lin Yuan also had a solution for the 100 Questions beast's loyalty. It was to keep the 100 Questions beasts in the Spirit Lock spatial zone. However, now that Genius had used its ability, Smart Cat Spirit, to form a contract with these 100 Questions beasts, Lin Yuan would never have to worry about the 100 Questions beast's loyalty. When he saw Genius Diamond ability, Spirit Tail, he frowned slightly. Genius Diamond level skill, Spirit Tail Stimulation, was a method to increase soul power. It was just that this kind of amplification effect required one to be smart enough to use their tails as the price behind it. When Genius had evolved from the 1,000 Questions beast to the Internet of Everything beast, he had personally witnessed the pain Genius had suffered when its tail had been severed. If possible, he would never want Genius to use its Diamond Spirit Tail Stimulation. Furthermore, before Genius became a Class 5 Creation Master, Lin Yuan didn't need Genius to do anything that a Class 4 Creation Master had to do. It wasn't easy for Genius to become a Class 5 Creation Master. In order to become a Class 5 Creation Master, one couldn't simply grasp knowledge. To be smart, one needed to carve out a path of their own. It did not take long for Lin Yuan to upgrade Genius to Diamond Eye/Fantasy Eye. Seeing that there were still over 10 minutes left, Lin Yuan started to seriously consider which Fey he should enhance next. In fact, there weren't many Feys that Lin Yuan could use Spirit Chi crystals to increase their grade and quality. Genius was done with its advancement. What was left was Chimey, Jasmine Lily, Little Black, Purple Firmament, Source Sand, and the Acid Corrosion Queen Bee. As for the Ethereal Jellyfish, he couldn't continue to upgrade it even if he wanted to. The Ethereal Jellyfish was now at Diamond X/Legend, and it only needed to comprehend the Willpower Rune to successfully become a fantasy breed. At the thought of the Ethereal Jellyfish, Lin Yuan immediately thought of the Acid Corrosion Queen Bee, which was similar to the Ethereal Jellyfish. After eating the last 2 Source Seeds, Red Thorn had been metamorphosing for a period of time. However, after such a long time, Red Thorn's metamorphosis had yet to be completed, causing the Acid Corrosion Queen Bee to be in low spirits. Lin Yuan immediately summoned the Acid Corrosion Queen Bee. When the Acid Corrosion Queen Bee heard Lin Yuan calling for it, it forcefully perked up. However, even when it was in front of Lin Yuan, the Acid Corrosion Queen Bee's eyes were still fixed in Red Thorn's direction. It was as though it was expecting Red Thorn to suddenly wake up. Upon seeing the Acid Corrosion Queen Bee's dejected appearance, Lin Yuan said, "Acid Corrosion Queen Bee, Red Thorn is evolving. Acid Corrosion Queen Bee, Red Thorn's evolution is a good thing. Do you have to be so sad? After Red Thorn wakes up, the house you live in can also become bigger." Lin Yuan still remembered that Red Thorn had issued 4 evolution requests to him before falling asleep. Finally, after some consideration, he had chosen to let Red Thorn evolve its digestive and devouring abilities. The organ that dominated Red Thorn's digestive and devouring abilities was the mouth of Relinquish. This meant that after the evolution, Red Thorn's mouth of Relinquish was destined to change more than before. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, the Acid Corrosion Queen Bee was still listless. It did not care whether its house would become bigger or not. It just blindly hoped that Red Thorn could wake up soon. Upon seeing this, Lin Yuan could not help but sigh. There must be true love between the Acid Corrosion Queen Bee and Red Thorn. The Acid Corrosion Queen Bee's grade had already been upgraded to Platinum Eye. Now that there were extra Spirit Chi crystals, Lin Yuan planned to upgrade the Acid Corrosion Queen Bee to Diamond X/Legend. This way, the Acid Corrosion Queen Bee could also comprehend its own willpower rune from the world like the Ethereal Jellyfish and become a fantasy breed. Since the Acid Corrosion Queen Bee was not a fantasy breed Fey, the Spirit Chi crystals that Lin Yuan needed to upgrade its grade were 10 times less than that of other fantasy breed Feys of the same grade. In order to upgrade the Acid Corrosion Queen Bee to Diamond X, Lin Yuan needed to consume 109 Spirit Chi crystals. After Lin Yuan crushed the 109 spirit chi crystals, the acid corrosion queen bee's grade rapidly increased. During the upgrade, the acid corrosion queen bee's appearance underwent a drastic change. The diamond acid corrosion queen bee's abdomen was still abnormally swollen like before. At a glance, it was a female bee that could give birth. However, the other parts of the acid corrosion queen bee had become full of edges, and the two stingers at the front had become the shape of a Mitsubishi thorn. When attacking a target, the triangular spikes could perfectly pierce through the target. The two stingers at the back of the tail had also shortened from the original slender needles to a relatively thick state. The two shortened stingers were convenient for the acid corrosion queen bee to stab the target when it twisted its swollen body. At the same time, the distance between the two shortened stingers became shorter so that when the acid corrosion queen bee stabbed the target with one stinger, the other stinger would follow at the same time. The acid corrosion queen bee's body was originally dark red with many green metal spots, which was very conspicuous. Now that it had reached diamond, it was unknown if it was to match the color of the red thorn sea of flowers, but its entire body had turned grayish-green. End of this chapter. Chapter 1090. It could be said that the diamond acid corrosion queen bee's color had become much simpler. Under the cover of red thorn's carnivorous vines, the acid corrosion queen bee could be called an excellent hidden killer. He used Morbius True Data to check the acid corrosion queen bee's exclusive skill. Fey name: acid corrosion queen bee, Fey species, wasp/hornet species, Fey grade, diamond 10 out of 10, Fey type, source/poison, Fey quality, legend abilities: frowny face, wing concealment, flaps its wings at a high frequency. The rapidly flapping reflective wings will cause the acid corrosion queen bee to enter a certain state of invisibility. Bone-piercing sting. The rotating sting with super hardness and impact can cause bone-piercing injuries. Parasitic pupa. The stinger on the acid corrosion queen bee's forelimb can release a rapidly incubating parasitic pupa into the target's body. Acid-swallowing larva. The acid corrosion queen bee will hatch a large number of acid-swallowing larvae when there is enough acid. As the acid corrosion queen bee's rations, the acid-swallowing larvae can quickly recover the acid corrosion queen bee's consumed energy and venom reserves. At the same time, the acid-swallowing larvae will replicate a portion of the acid corrosion queen bee's mother's genes. If the mother dies, the replicated genes will be activated, making the acid-swallowing larvae a new mother. Acid corpse bee goo. Consumes a large amount of acid in the body to produce an acid corpse bee goo. The acid corpse bee goo lives in a dead Fey or dimensional life form and can control the dead Fey or dimensional life form's movements. If the acid corpse bee goo's host Fey or dimensional life form is not activated by the acid corrosion queen bee, it will turn into a chrysalis again. Bee queen's sorrow. When the queen bee dies, the two toxins in the queen bee's stinger will quickly take effect. The two toxins will fuse together to cause the queen bee's mother to self-destruct. During the self-destruction process, the queen bee's body will eject the venom formed by the two stingers. The venom will automatically trigger the two-hit kill effect on the target. Exclusive skill: frowny face, two-hit kill. The two stingers carry two different kinds of acid corrosion venom. If the two stingers hit the target at the same spot, the two toxins will fuse and instantly disintegrate the target's body. Upon seeing the acid corrosion queen bee's new ability, Queen Bee's Sorrow, Lin Yuan could not help but slap his thigh and laugh. It could be said that among all of his Feys, the one that had never met Lin Yuan's expectations was the acid corrosion queen bee. The acid corrosion queen bee's lethality mainly came from its exclusive skill, two-hit kill. However, it was too difficult to use the two-strike sure kill skill to hit the same part of the enemy with two stingers. Lin Yuan took the strange plant lifeform's seed out of the amber button-shaped diamond Fey storage box. Before Lin Yuan could take a closer look at what was so special about this seed, the slumbering red thorn suddenly reacted. Through the bloodline connected to red thorn, Lin Yuan could feel red thorn's almost crazy desire for this strange plant seed in his hand. This desire was even stronger than when red thorn had devoured the two source seeds previously. This made Lin Yuan feel rather surprised. Lin Yuan could not do anything when he sensed red thorn's incessant desire for the strange plant seed. In any case, Lin Yuan could not find out the use of this strange plant seed, so he simply fed it to the evolving red thorn. After red thorn devoured this strange plant seed, its original desire immediately calmed down. After sensing red thorn's situation, Lin Yuan revealed a smile. This strange plant seed's devouring reduced red thorn's originally long evolution time. It also allowed red thorn to mutate in an unknown direction through the strange plant seed. Of course, this kind of mutation was on the premise of ensuring red thorn's original evolution direction and function. To put it bluntly, this kind of mutation was equivalent to giving red thorn an additional ability. With the greatly reduced evolution time, red thorn would be able to complete its evolution by tomorrow night. At that time, Lin Yuan would also be able to see how red thorn would evolve after absorbing the two source seeds and the strange plant seed. End of this chapter. Chapter 1091. After sensing red thorn's situation, Lin Yuan did not immediately check on the 10 spirit-roasted peonies planted on the Pure Land of Bliss. Instead, he went to astrologer Ji Tan and prepared to collect its pollen for the second time. Just as Lin Yuan was collecting the pollen into the brocade box, Gray, who was playing with the wind-speed rapid antelope, passed by Lin Yuan. It sprinkled some of astrologer Ji Tan's pollen on Lin Yuan. Upon seeing this, Lin Yuan hurriedly closed the brocade box and used his hand to hit his body a few times. Astrologer Ji Tan's pollen was very fine, and Lin Yuan was not infected with misfortune, so he could not smell it. Therefore, Lin Yuan did not know if he had cleaned up astrologer Ji Tan's pollen. After collecting astrologer Ji Tan's pollen, Lin Yuan went to the spirit-roasted peonies. Lin Yuan found that these spirit-roasted peonies' gold-sprinkled red flowers were still gently closing after half an hour. He did not know how long it would take for them to form flower buds. Lin Yuan took a spirit chi crystal and squeezed it with his fingers. The spirit chi crystal shattered. Lin Yuan hurriedly guided the huge spirit chi in this spirit chi crystal to one of the spirit-roasted peonies. Very soon, the pure spirit energy in the spirit chi crystal turned the 5 golden red flowers on the nightmare spirit peony into flower buds. After the 5 gold-sprinkled red flowers turned into flower buds, the pure spirit chi in the spirit chi crystal did not consume much. Lin Yuan estimated that it had consumed at most 1/10 of the spirit chi. After looking at the remaining spirit-roasted peonies, Lin Yuan did not choose to inject the spirit chi in the spirit chi crystal into the other 9 spirit-roasted peonies. Lin Yuan planned to give his master 1 spirit-roasted peonies first. He wanted to see if the pure spirit chi in the spirit-roasted peonies' flower buds would be helpful to the Moon Empress. Leaving these 9 spirit-roasted peonies could allow them to freely absorb the pure spirit chi in the spirit-lock spatial zone and save the consumption of spirit chi crystals. On the other hand, Lin Yuan wanted to try to cultivate the spirit-roasted peonies. This way, the pure spirit chi in the spirit-lock spatial zone could become a precious resource that could be exchanged through the spirit-roasted peonies. Lin Yuan had already thought of how to use this resource. Even if the pure spirit chi could be exchanged, Lin Yuan only planned to provide it to the Moon Empress. His master, the Moon Empress, could use the pure spirit chi to display other values and expand her status and influence among the Class 5 creation masters. He did not waste the remaining 90% of the spirit chi in the spirit chi crystal. Instead, he took out dozens of snake phase that he had collected for Wendy. Lin Yuan used the remaining 90% of the spirit chi in the spirit chi crystal to raise them to bronze. This way, these snake phase could be given to Wendy and let her use her talent, Snake Descendants Paradise, to turn them into snake hair. This way, Lin Yuan Yu, Zong Yuan Dragon, Zong Yuan's Dragon Fei, Roasted Thorn Yu and Spirit Chi. After tidying up everything, Lin Yuan suddenly recalled that he had yet to prepare a small gift for Zong Zhe. Soul of Spirit Peonies, Thorn Lin Yuan's Spirit Roared Star. After peeling off a pile of Heavenly Maiden Grade Elemental Pearls with the Cloud Dream Lake and Fixed Bliss Life Pearls, a colorful Fire-type Heavenly Maiden Grade Elemental Pearl appeared in front of him. Lin Yuan did not expect to find another Heavenly Maiden Grade Elemental Pearl with the Goddess Roasted Star. After taking out the Heavenly Maiden Grade Elemental Pearl, he vigorously rummaged through the pile of Heavenly Maiden Grade Elemental Pearls. Apart from a few scattered Heavenly Maiden Grade Elemental Pearls of various elements, he did not find another Heavenly Maiden Grade Elemental Pearl with the Goddess Roasted Star. After thinking for a moment, Lin Yuan planned to give this Heavenly Maiden Grade Elemental Pearl to Zong Zhe as a small gift. The Fire-type Heavenly Maiden Grade Elemental Pearl would definitely be useful to Zong Zhe. However, Lin Yuan thought that even if Zong Zhe was the Chef Supreme's disciple, he should not be willing to let his Fei absorb this Heavenly Maiden Grade Elemental Pearl with the Goddess Roasted Star. Due to the scarcity of Heavenly Maiden Grade Elemental Pearls, Lin Yuan had only found 2 so far. They were both Fire-type. Therefore, Lin Yuan did not intend to let such rare items flow into the market. In Lin Yuan's opinion, it was most suitable to give a friend a Heavenly Maiden Grade Elemental Pearl with the Goddess Roasted Star as a gift. After confirming the small gift for Zhongzhe, Lin Yuan placed this fire-type heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearl into a brocade pouch woven from brocade. Then he took the black spirit peony, which had 5 golden red flowers that had turned into flower buds, and a brocade box of astrology wisdom cloud pollen, leaving the spirit lock spatial zone and returning to the breeding room. After returning to the breeding room, Lin Yuan did not stay there. Instead, he left the breeding room. Lin Yuan's breeding room was built in the Radiant Moon Palace's inner palace, just like the Moon Empress breeding room. Therefore, when Lin Yuan opened the breeding room's door, he immediately saw the Moon Empress, who was drinking tea and waiting for him in the inner palace. He also saw Cold Moon and Mystic Moon beside her. Even now, Cold Moon and Mystic Moon were looking at Lin Yuan in disbelief. This was because Cold Moon and Mystic Moon were still unable to completely digest what Lin Yuan had just said. They did not think that Lin Yuan had any means to produce spirit chi that had a higher concentration than the glass-type Emperor spirit containing jade. Even the spirit chi concocted by the Moon Empress had a lower concentration than the glass-type Emperor spirit containing jade. The Moon Empress might be a Class 5 Creation Master, but this was definitely because there were no more grades above Class 5 Creation Masters. At present, the Radiance Federation's 3 Class 5 Creation Masters, the Moon Empress, Chef Supreme and Bamboo Monarch, each had their own specialties. Among them, the Moon Empress was definitely the strongest in producing pure spirit chi, while the Bamboo Monarch was relatively weaker. However, the Bamboo Monarch was the strongest among the 3 Class 5 Creation Masters in creating artifacts. If Young Lord could produce spirit chi that was purer than the Moon Empress, wouldn't he become an existence that transcended the entire Radiance Federation? Lin Yuan walked in front of his master, the Moon Empress, and his face bloomed with a sunny smile, revealing his small white teeth. He handed the black spirit peony, which had 5 flower buds, to the Moon Empress. "Master, what do you think of the black spirit peony's spirit chi concentration?" The Moon Empress did not immediately take the black spirit peony from Lin Yuan's hand. Instead, she looked at Lin Yuan's sunny smile and was stunned. This smile made the Moon Empress feel as though she was in the hot summer of August. Her entire body and mind were filled with warmth and satisfaction under this smile. End of this chapter. Chapter 1092. At this moment, only the rustling of the lotus leaves in the lotus pond could be heard in the inner palace of the Radiant Moon Palace. The Moon Empress felt that when Lin Yuan handed over the poison spirit peony, it was like a child who had picked up something good and was happily handing it to his parents. After being startled for a moment, the Moon Empress involuntarily revealed the same smile on Lin Yuan's face. However, when the Moon Empress took the spirit paper peony from Lin Yuan's hand and activated the flower bud to let it release spirit chi, the Moon Empress' eyes widened. The Moon Empress immediately revealed a horrified expression that she had not seen for decades. The Moon Empress' other hand suddenly clenched tightly. The change in the Moon Empress' aura immediately attracted Cold Moon and Black Moon's attention. When Cold Moon and Mystic Moon saw the Moon Empress' expression, they looked at Lin Yuan as though they were looking at a monster. Based on the Moon Empress' expression, Cold Moon and Mystic Moon knew that the spirit chi that Lin Yuan had concocted was indeed superior to the glass-type Emperor spirit containing jade. The Moon Empress, who had a shocked expression on her face, suddenly had a rather strange feeling. Thinking back to the time when he had the idea of accepting a disciple, he had set a threshold. Lin Yuan was the only one who met the requirements and became a Class 2 Creation Master during his first Creation Master exam. After understanding Lin Yuan's background and character, the Moon Empress treated him as her disciple and loved him. Back then, the Moon Empress still remembered that Lin Yuan had said that the most important thing between a master and disciple was the relationship. Lin Yuan's words touched the Moon Empress and made her recall the old thing who had taught her. As they continued to interact, the relationship between the Moon Empress and Lin Yuan deepened. Even though they weren't related by blood, the bond that was passed down from generation to generation made the two of them even closer. The Moon Empress had always wanted to be a good master to pave the way for Lin Yuan and to give the best to him. Let Lin Yuan have a happy life. He didn't expect his disciple to help him so much in the end. Not long ago, the Moon Empress had just broken through that boundary, and that breakthrough could be said to be a narrow escape from death. After breaking through that boundary, even with the Moon Empress temperament, she didn't dare to take another step forward. However, with such pure spirit chi, the Moon Empress immediately saw hope that she could improve further. This hope did not require the Moon Empress to bear any risk. However, if he wanted the Moon Empress to progress further, The spirit qi in the refined spirit peony was obviously insufficient. At the same time, the Moon Empress had also contracted many phases, and several of them had extremely intense reactions to pure spirit qi. Even if the Moon Empress didn't use the pure spirit qi to evolve, she could just give it to the phase that had a huge reaction to the pure spirit qi. It could also allow his phase genetic model to evolve again and improve their strength. The Moon Empress felt that her strength would increase by at least 30%. At that moment, the little rabbit, who hid its carrot when it saw Lin Yuan, scuttled onto the table and used its nose to sniff the spirit-holding peony's bud. At that moment, the little rabbit's gaze toward Lin Yuan wasn't as aggrieved as before. Zishi felt that this guy who had eaten half of his carrot was no longer a nuisance but a good person. Lin Yuan did not know that the Rabbit Emperor's good guy card had been attached to him. The Moon Empress' heart stirred as she looked at Zishi, who was smelling the spirit peony's bud. He had broken through to that realm before Zishi, but Zishi had been stuck at the same spot, unable to advance. With such pure spirit qi, Zishi should no longer be stuck at the same spot. However, for Zishi to rely on pure spirit qi to safely reach that realm, the pure spirit qi in these 5 flower buds was definitely not enough. There was a lot of pure spirit energy in the 5 flower buds of the Nightmare Spirit Peony. The pure spirit energy in each flower bud was comparable to the glass-type Emperor Spirit containing jade in the brocade box. However, the Moon Empress really couldn't open her mouth to ask for pure spirit qi from her disciple. At that moment, the Moon Empress heard Lin Yuan's voice. "Master, this is only the first stalk of Soul Hermetic Peony. In the future, I will give you more Soul Hermetic Peonies that have absorbed pure spiritual energy. As for the remaining 9 stalks of Nightmare Peony, I will divide them into cuttings. After that, I will provide you with 20 stalks of Nightmare Peony with 5 flower buds every week. At that time, whether you use these Nightmare Spirit Peony for yourself or use them like pollen, it's all up to you." When the Moon Empress heard Lin Yuan's words, she looked shocked again. The Moon Empress felt that in this short hour, she was more shocked than she had been in the past 10 years. This meant that she would be able to obtain 100 Nightmare Spirit Peony flower buds every week. If he had so much pure spirit qi, then he wouldn't need to think about how to conserve it. She would just use it directly. In a few months, the pure spirit qi would be enough for her to take a big step forward. It would also allow Zishi and her other phase to undergo a complete transformation. The Moon Empress felt that Lin Yuan had given her a fated opportunity today. This fated opportunity would allow her to reduce her hard work by at least 30 years. The feeling of being given resources by her disciple was very wonderful and also very warm to the Moon Empress. It suddenly gave the Moon Empress a feeling that she could also rely on someone. When this feeling appeared, the Moon Empress felt a little helpless. Even someone as powerful as the Moon Empress couldn't quickly calm down this feeling that appeared for the first time in her life. At the same time, the Moon Empress also understood what Lin Yuan meant by, "use it like pollen." She wasn't the only one who needed pure spirit qi. He was a Class 5 creation master and could concoct pure spirit qi on his own. Those old fellows who weren't creation masters wouldn't be able to do it. Only God knew how desperate those old guys were for pure spiritual energy. The pure spirit qi that Lin Yuan had provided to him was simply too important. After Lin Yuan finished speaking, he handed a brocade box of astrologer Ji Tan's pollen to the Moon Empress. "Master, the second wave of pollen has matured. With 4 or 5 more boxes of pollen, Wang Fuxiang's bad luck will be completely dispelled." The Moon Empress nodded in response. This time he had brought astrologer Ji Tan's pollen over, and the Bamboo Monarch had completely regarded him as a benefactor. He didn't even know how to thank himself. It could be said that a portion of astrologer Ji Tan's pollen had been exchanged for a huge favor from Bamboo Monarch. In order to return the favor, the Bamboo Monarch did not hesitate to take out a treasure like the golden silk Emperor Bamboo. However, as the second and third boxes of astrologer Ji Tan's pollen were delivered to the Purple Bamboo Garden, Ji Tan's pollen was sent to the Purple Bamboo Garden. The Bamboo Monarch owed him a favor and he would never be able to repay it. A favor from an eminence, especially a Class 5 creation master, was hard to come by. As a fellow eminence and a Class 5 creation master, the Moon Empress was naturally very clear about this. End of this chapter. Chapter 1093. Soon, the Moon Empress regained her composure from the shock of the pure spirit qi. After calming down, the Moon Empress pondered for a moment and knew that Lin Yuan wasn't able to concoct such pure spirit qi because he was a Class 5 creation master. If he wanted to become a Class 5 creation master, he would need to carve out a path that belonged to him. This path was definitely not going to be easy. Lin Yuan must be relying on a sacred source life form or a certain fei to be able to produce such pure spirit qi. This was her disciple's trump card, and the Moon Empress would not inquire too much about it. In the Moon Empress' opinion, with this trump card, Lin Yuan would be able to take over her position once he matured. When that time came, he would be able to enjoy his retirement in the glorious land like the previous 13 majesties. When the Moon Empress saw Lin Yuan standing in front of her, she once again felt that she was somewhat unqualified as a master. The Moon Empress had been closely observing Lin Yuan's footsteps, but it turned out that her observation was not meticulous enough. Unknowingly, his disciple had already gone further than he had imagined. The Moon Empress stood up and gently held Lin Yuan's hand before pulling him toward her breeding room. The Moon Empress was going to have a question and answer session with him before he went for lunch. He wanted to see if Lin Yuan had any knowledge that he wanted to grasp or questions that he did not understand. When they reached the breeding room, the Moon Empress recalled that the Abyss world was about to be revealed to the public. "Disciple, do you have any preparations for the exploration of the Abyss world?" Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan did not hide anything. He immediately formed a faction with Zhongzhe, Gulang, Li Xian, Long Tao, Sun Ningxiang, Gao Feng, Lu Jie and the others. He told his master, the Moon Empress, that he was preparing to explore the Abyss world. When the Moon Empress heard that it was Long Tao's idea and that she had instigated it, she was stunned. She could not help but discover Lin Yuan's interpersonal skills and leadership skills, which he had never shown in front of her. In the Moon Empress' opinion, interpersonal skills and leadership skills were essential qualities for a Radiance envoy. She didn't need to teach Lin Yuan these two qualities as he had already grasped them. Moreover, Lin Yuan, Gulang, Zhongzhe, Lu Jie and Gao Feng were all disciples of Her Holiness. They were all popular candidates for the Radiance envoy position. Even Long Tao might become a member of the Radiant Light Knights. These people had banded together in advance. With common interests, they would definitely be able to support each other in the assessment. This was a good thing for the Moon Empress. Upon seeing that Lin Yuan already had ideas about the exploration of the Abyss and had put them into practice, the Moon Empress did not talk to him about the Abyss anymore. The exploration of the Abyss world was still in its initial stages. Lin Yuan would learn some secrets during his exploration of the Abyss, so there was no need to tell him now. Thinking that Lin Yuan was about to explore the dangerous Abyss, the Moon Empress' hand trembled. A cage made of dark purple metal that was 1 cubic meter in size appeared on the floor of the breeding room. A shadow was trapped in the iron cage. The shadow was struggling and roaring in the cage. However, when Shadow saw the Moon Empress, he immediately curled up in a corner of the cage while shivering. He was like a pitiful wretch who had been tortured countless times in fear. Upon sensing the faint aura of life in the shadow, Lin Yuan immediately used Morbius True Data to investigate the shadow in the cage. Upon seeing Lin Yuan looking at the dark purple metal cage, the Moon Empress said, "That's right. This is a level 11 8 tribulation dimensional creature, Void Shadow Fiend." Just as the Moon Empress was explaining to Lin Yuan found out about the Void Shadow Fiend's true data. Alien beast name, Void Shadow Fiend, life form, dimensional life form, alien beast grade, level 11 8 tribulation talent specialty frowny face fleeing shadow / slaughter shadow. Usually, it can hide its body in the shadow of something. After entering the fleeing shadow state, only targets that are 2 life forms higher than it can sense it. During the attack, it can attack other targets' shadows. The targets can be defined as living individuals and inanimate individuals. After the target's shadow is attacked, the injuries will be fed back to the main body. Upon seeing the Void Shadow Fiend's true data, Lin Yuan's pupils constricted. This was because Lin Yuan had never imagined that the one imprisoned in this iron cage was actually a rank 11, 8 tribulation abyssal demon. According to the original classification method for dimensional life forms, a level 11 8 tribulation dimensional creature should be classified as level 18. However, such a classification method was too complicated, and it was inconvenient to measure the combat power between dimensional life forms and phase. As a result, dimensional life forms that were equivalent to creation breed phase were all defined as level 11. However, in order to deal with the creation breed phase 8 tribulations, the strength of dimensional life forms was also divided according to the stages of the 8 tribulations. The Void Shadow Fiend in front of him, which was hidden in the shadows, was a dimensional life form that was comparable to a Monarch Class 10 creation breed 8th tribulation Fae. In fact, it was common knowledge that demon dimensional life forms were often stronger than dimensional life forms of the same grade. The Void Shadow Fiend in front of him was likely to be stronger than ordinary Pinnacle Emperor class phase. The water-drinking venom snake vulture that Lin Yuan had encountered previously was a level 11 tribulation dimensional lifeform. However, unlike this Void Shadow Fiend, the water-drinking venom snake vulture was a blessings believer. However, this level 11 8 tribulation Void Shadow Fiend was just an ordinary dimensional lifeform. This Void Shadow Fiend was a top-notch assassin or bodyguard due to its talent, Fleeing Shadow/Slaughter Shadow. It could hide in the target's shadow to protect the target or assassinate the enemy through the enemy's shadow at any time. After explaining to Lin Yuan what the thing in the cage was, the Moon Empress looked at the Void Shadow Fiend and said, "Void Shadow Fiend, this Empress originally planned to use you as a material to concoct a kind of spirit fluid. Now this Empress will give you a chance to live. Use your soul as a cardboard and use your faith as ink to write an oath of allegiance to this Empress disciple. Be this Empress disciple's servant. Only by becoming this Empress disciple's servant and obeying this Empress disciple's orders can you live." When the Moon Empress' cold tone entered the Void Shadow Fiend's ears, the shadow shrouding the Void Shadow Fiend trembled. Lin Yuan did not know what his master had done to the Void Shadow Fiend before. However, it was clear that the Void Shadow Fiend was filled with fear. This made Lin Yuan's heart involuntarily have a trace of doubt. Weren't abyssal demons always fearless? Moreover, the Void Shadow Fiend was a level 11 8 tribulation high-ranking demon. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.